5 minutes to showtime. 5 minutes to showtime. Three minutes to showtime. 3 minutes.
Could be a catastrophe, which reasonable worst case scenario was 500,000 fatalities. And it's thanks to your effort and sacrifice in stopping the spread of this disease that the death rate is coming down and hospital admissions are coming down.
The UK recorded more than 220,000 cases and nearly 32,000 deaths. John, adding those who must go to work in person should avoid mass transit for safety. The virus itself has attacked at least 1.3 million in the U.S., killing more than 79,000. With many states beginning to reopen, epidemiologist Dr. Michael Osterholm with the University of Minnesota looking at what may happen here as we move forward.
Somewhere between now and tomorrow, next year, we're going to see 60 to 70% of Americans ultimately infected with this virus. What we have to do is figure out how not just to die with the virus, but also how to live with it. And we're not having that discussion.
Osterholm on NBC's Meet the Press. America's listening to Fox News.
When running a business, HR issues can kill you.
wrongful termination.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
And greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. In here, the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You'll be safely traveling with us. As you can see, I have a new camera, brand spanking new, out of the box. This is another 1080 camera. I had to trash the other one. It only lasted about 5 hours and it went to hell. We'll see if this one lasts. It's about maybe 45 minutes old, so we'll see how long it lasts. So we may have to go back to our good old Logitech if it doesn't work out. Let me give you my Religion of Peace report right off the bat. In the last 7 days, the Religion of Peace conducted 37 attacks. In these 37 attacks, they killed 121 innocent people. They injured 60 innocent people, conducted 1 suicide blast, and spread their mayhem across 12 countries. We are now in day 17 of the Ramadan Bamathon. There have been 79 attacks and 286 dead. All this from the Religion of Peace. Tonight I have 2 very special guests coming on. I met Apolla at a conference in Arizona. Fantastic personality. I've since got a chance to be introduced to Kaisi Berick. Kaisi Berick, as you know, came on the scene 2012, 2013 like a storm. And the thing that was amazing about Kaisi is he was able to fuse hold on one second while I take this call. Maybe it's him. Let's hang on just 1 second. Kaisi, are you there? Oh, don't tell me I got butt dial. Does this sound like a butt dial to you? Yeah, it does to me too. All right, so we're going to bring him on at 8:30. So hang in there. But it's a fusion of trance music and what he calls scientific frequencies all put together with very powerful lyrics. And there we go, we're reconnected. So everything is going smoothly now. I don't know why I'm having trouble with my OBS. It seems to be drawing a tremendous amount of my very powerful dual turbocharged CPU. The cure, ever since President Trump expressed optimism about the use of hydroxychloroquine to treat COVID-19, the mere mention of that drug can elicit instantaneous, strident, and finger-wagging condemnation by the mainstream media and all those who are pulling for the pandemic to lay waste to the economy and pave the way for a fundamental progressive transformation of America. Despite its use by healthcare providers across the country and around the world to successfully treat COVID-19, you will be mocked as either a fool or a snake oil salesman if you approvingly utter the word hydroxychloroquine, or even express hope that it can be used to save lives. The word is simply not to be tolerated in polite, progressive society. If you're a member of the polite, progressive society, you're in the wrong place. Well, it appears that the list of forbidden words is about to get longer. The new additions include corticosteroids and methylprednisolone. What do these widely available and relatively inexpensive drugs have to do with known safety profiles? And what do they have in common with hydroxychloroquine? Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Leading physicians are using them in addition to hydroxychloroquine to successfully treat COVID-19. And they are doing so without waiting 2 or 3 years for the results of randomized clinical trials. After all, isn't the existence of an effective, widely available, scalable treatment with a known safety profile for COVID-19 a powerful argument for reopening America and ending government's ongoing destruction of our lives, livelihoods, and the economy? Well, maybe. Of course, they don't really like this, which is why you will never hear about these findings or strategy from the fake stream news and their progressive allies who have a stake in prolonging the lockdown. But here's the question for you. Why weren't physicians from the very onset of the pandemic using this or similar strategy to treat the inflammation caused by COVID-19? As stated in several protocols, the consortium provides this disturbing answer. You should be ready to hear this. And by the way, I mistakenly called them the mainstream news. They are not. They're the fake stream news. We are now the mainstream news. We are the ones that are reaching the majority of the people. The systemic failure of critical care systems to adopt corticosteroid therapy resulted from the published recommendations against corticosteroids use by, the World Health Organization, the Centers for Disease Control, and the American Thoracic Society, amongst others. A very recent publication by the Society of Critical Care Medicine identified the errors made by these organizations in their analysis of corticosteroid studies based on the findings of the SARS and H1N1 pandemics. Their erroneous recommendation to avoid corticosteroids in the treatment of COVID-19 has led to the development of myriad organ failures, which have overwhelmed critical care systems across the world, and now I understand even kids are being affected by these organ failures. That is because the vast majority of the political left is pressuring physicians to not use corticosteroids to treat COVID-19 patients. This failure and this misinformation by these taxpayer-funded organizations are as infuriating as the Food and Drug Administration's recent warning about hydroxychloroquine possibly causing irregular heartbeat in COVID-19 patients, even though the Food and Drug Administration provides no similar warning for the millions of persons who take it for malarial prophylaxis or as an anti-inflammatory in the treatment of lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. All that you have just read is the work product of highly qualified experts who are on the front lines every day successfully treating COVID-19. They are not living in ivory towers and pontificating from on high about the need for randomized clinical trials and the production of vaccines that are years away from being developed, if they ever will be. How many people have to die before we unseat these princes of deception? I say, not one more. Not one more. This is the voice of the revolution. At 8:30, I have Kaisi Berick and Apolla Asteria coming on. Not only are they intelligent, beautiful, powerful musicians, great artists, but they have great intellect as well. You're really, really going to enjoy this. So I'm waiting for the chat room to build up. Let's keep it going. Any problems with the video or the the still vibration or the sound, just let me know. Just in plain language. Don't write me a book in the chat room because I'm looking at you with this eye and reading with this eye and trying to keep up with my notes. So, what's going on in China? Wouldn't you like to know? Besides the economic turmoil, there's also political turmoil going on in China, and they feel the pressure. The Chinese government is feeling the pressure. China may expand its stock of nuclear warheads to 1,000 sooner than later. And the Global Times published this piece making the strategic call. It is backed by the People's Daily, which is the communist mouthpiece known to float ideas and guide public sentiments, which tends to make a robust nationalistic stance on issues of geopolitics. But the editorial laid out the case for what it believed is part of the rise of communist China to become a global superpower. Now, we all know the global syndicate has a military arm, a political arm, an economic arm, and, of course, the global media empire arm. And we know that for all intents and purposes, it looks like the communist Chinese government is the military arm of the global syndicate. We talked about their battle strategy last Wednesday. If you missed it, please go back and listen to the archive because we have way more stuff to go through this week to keep you up with the current events. China says they need to expand the number of nuclear warheads in a relatively short time. Why? They say it needs to have at least 100 Dongfeng 41 strategic missiles, which are a peace-loving nation. Well, I said we are a peace-loving nation and have committed to never being the first to use nuclear weapons, but we need a larger nuclear arsenal to curb U.S. strategic ambitions and impulses toward China. Now, as far as I know, our nuclear stockpile, as far as weapons, has not been getting larger. It's been getting smaller. That is to say, the weapons are getting smaller, they're becoming more strategic. The ICBMs are not really being built. In fact, the fuel for the ICBMs is being converted into fuel for nuclear power plants. Double Dog, you are amazing. Absolutely amazing. He says, I love when Brooks pumps his hand when the music crescendos, but it's coming across a little weak. Can we get some stage pyrotechnics behind him in the room to blow off simultaneously? They didn't go off? You know, I'll check into that, Double Dog. Hey, we're supposed to be... I'll work on it, I promise. I have a fire extinguisher. We can work on it. I'm here to please. I'm here to please. And by the way, this is a pyrotechnic right here. You should see it in person. It's quite impressive. Let me tell you a little bit about Kaisi and Apolla. They're coming on at 8:30. We've got about 15 minutes. It would take way more than that to explain the power and grace and creativity of these two. Apolla is a UFO experiencer, and she speaks at conferences. Her quantum touch energy. She's certified in her crystal bamboo shaman spears. If you haven't seen these things, they're quite amazing. Go to shamanspears.com. The link is in the chat room right now. I'll put it in the description in the video right here below. I've seen them in person. They're quite impressive. I've got a couple of small little, wands that were made with copper pipe and a big crystal, and they're okay. But they're not magical like these things Apolla makes. They are not just a work of art. They have balance. They have grace. It's really something. A lot of thought, a lot of energy, a lot of purpose goes into these things. So, they also make fantastic Mother's Day presents. Unless, of course, you've been a bad boy. Then you don't want to have a powerful wand like this in the house. It could turn you into, whatever. Anyway, I met her at a conference, and not only is she a powerful speaker, she's a very energetic personality. Of course, she's an accomplished actress. She performs on stage with Kaisi, and I'll tell you a little bit about Kaisi in a second. The thing about this movement that is happening It used to be my generation. We were the ones that kind of, came through the woods out into the opening and began speaking about living with the planet, living with one another, talking about the power structures of government and how unfair they were and tilted they were, and how they didn't give us a voice and we didn't have the ability to vote or affect our policy, not just in our towns and cities, but also our states and even our country. And for a long time, the elections were just like, okay, whose freaking turn is it next? And the person with the good hair and the person with the most dues paid and all that crap just got elected over and over again, decade after decade. We got kind of sick of it. And when it got to the point where it looked like the reins were going to be handed to Hillary Clinton, we said enough. And we went out and we voted. And we voted in a big way by tens of millions. But the next generation has something we don't have. My generation. What we didn't have growing up is this. This is an upgrade for us. The phone we had a cord to it and had a little dial, and it was crazy. Then we went to auto dialers, then we went to touch tone, and touch tone, that was a big thing. I saw my first one at Disney World when I was a kid. Oh, we'll never have that. That's way too far in the future. But we did. And then cheap phones, and then somewhere in the 90s, we got a cell phone. I mean, I had one of the original cell phones. Yeah. In the late 80s, I had a cell phone. It was like 5 watts. It was in a bag and it had a cord on it, and you talked on it and held the bag away from me because it was like putting off tremendous amounts of power to reach the tower, which was 10 miles away or 20. But then more and more towers got up and the phones got better and better and the systems got better and better. And of course, we were still paying by the minute. I know, could you believe that? We were actually paying by the minute. Point is, we didn't even know what data was on a phone. Send a photograph? Hell, I didn't see any of that till 2002. And then it was in Japan. I didn't see photos on a phone until like 2003, 2004, and somewhere around 2006. Wow, I got my first smartphone. It wasn't really a smartphone, it was a cell phone. By 2012, I got my first iPhone. You see, I'm just a late comer. And all of this is an upgrade, but the next generation, they're hardwired to this stuff. They already think this way. They already create this way. They text without even having to look at the phone. There are lots of things that become electronic and become an integral part of the creative process, and that's what Kaisi does. Kaisi takes fusion and trance. I don't know if you ever listen to trance music. I love trance music. I drive on the freeway to trance music. But he takes those forms of music and he fuses them together in a very creative way, live on the stage. It's quite an experience to watch. It's not all pre-recorded, And then he does something I have not seen any other, quote, DJs do. And that is, he sings. And he sings with an amazing voice. Not just his natural voice, also his screaming voice is good. But then the electronics is a part of that art as well. It's part of the delivery, of the frequency, of the energy of what he's trying to say. And if you listen to the lyrics, and then you couple it with the music, you have something as powerful, if not more powerful, than the hard rock or the metal that we listened to when we were kids. It's not just artistic. It is a function of communication to the very soul. And that's who's coming on at 8:30. So visit their websites. The links are in the chat room. If you missed it, just scroll back up, click on that. We're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about, yes, government. And we're going to talk about the deep state. And he is a member of, or heads up, as a producer of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. Now, we talk a lot about foundations on this program. We talk about political action committees, and sometimes they have really cool names like Free Speech or Destroy Disinfo. But that's not what they do. They do the exact opposite. There's some kind of George Soros, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde that come in all like, hey, we come in peace, and then they wipe out everybody in the room. This Foundation really is what it says. The issue is that, at least in a republic, it depends upon the voice of the people. And some of the people have been disenfranchised in the system. I don't mean they've been denied the chance to vote. Everyone with a little bit of effort gets that. What I'm talking about is the actual truth of the system getting to the people that need that information in order to make an informed decision when they vote. They don't get it. All they get is propaganda. All they see is the work of political action committees, slamming one candidate, slamming another candidate. And one of the things that we've become disheartened with, and we have for a long, long time, but this generation is just flat pissed off about it, and that is the money in politics. Oh, I know, lots of you said, how do we get the money out of politics? How do we stop this billion-dollar, stripper show that we watch every 4 years? How do we stop that? Well, the answer is a lot more simple than you think. Right now we have, a 56-party system. Okay, it's a 2-party system. But there are like 56 parties that run. Do you ever hear about the others? No. Why? Because the Republicans and the Democrats control the ballot. They control the ballot. That's why you don't see an independent, you don't see a libertarian, you don't see a Green Party or a Constitution Party or a free elections party or just a dude. I'm just a dude running for president. You don't see that because the ballots don't permit it. The election system is corrupt itself. And this is how people become disenfranchised. Who controls that? Why do they control that? They control that because the freaking treasury of the United States of America is the biggest damn checkbook the universe has ever seen. And remember, 100 senators break that checkbook into 100 parts. Actually 50, because there's 2 senators per state. But think of it this way. There's a whole bunch of actors and actresses who are posing as congressmen who got elected by nobody. And they're sitting in Congress, and guess what they have the ability to do? They have the ability to write laws. And they have the ability to empower agencies, departments, bureaus, and administrations that spend all your money in places you don't want it to go. And the other thing they have the power to do is to prevent people from running against them. In fact, they have the ability to prevent companies from competing against their companies. So what do you think they do? I'll give you a second to think about it. Well, they use the power of government on behalf of the people who bought them. I told you, they're actors and actresses. They go before a microphone and they wear a turban, or they scream and yell, or they wear some spangled freaking sequin cowboy hat. Do they know anything? Hell no, they don't know anything. They're told what to say. They go up there and they read a script. Who writes the script? The companies that bought them. Yes, can we talk about state governments? Yes, of course we can. I think the federal government's corrupt, but if you really want to see corruption, go to your state house. Oh yeah. Corruption actually starts on the city level. You know what the gateway to the stars is? It's the city council. It's the city council. If you want to see your future corrupt politicians, go to a city council meeting. They're open, they're public, you can go to them, unless they have an executive session, which is rare. Go to it. You'll see those people that are in there making those deals, shaking those hands, slipping into the back room and smoking whatever they smoke, doing whatever they do. That's the future of corruption. And they work their way up the ladder in the state house, state congress, state senate. Maybe they run for governor, maybe they don't. Maybe they run for mayor, maybe they don't. But somehow they slip into the cabinet. Somehow they slip into an agency, a department, a bureau, an administration. And someday, if they look right, if they do it just right, if they're willing to make the oath and the covenant, sell their soul, they can run for Congress. You know, I don't like Mitch McConnell, but I spoke to him one time, and he told me you can't run nobody against somebody. It just will never work. And I never agreed with that. I always thought the person with the loudest voice and the best talent and the brightest brain would win. And that just simply is not the case. And that is the problem with our system. How do you get money out of politics? You do it by stopping the process of requiring all that money in order to be on the ballot, all that money in order to get that popularity. You know what I get on my phone? You probably get it too. A whole bunch of messages from candidates. Hey, Nancy Pelosi's ripping our country apart, and we got to do something about it. Send me $15. Hey, COVID-19 is hurting our economy, and we need to get back to work. Send me $20. It's all about money. Our opponent is outraising us. We're going to lose the election. Why? What does the amount of money you raise have a damn thing to do with whether you're going to win the election or not? Because you know what I do here? I reach you. I reach you. I talk to you. I reason with you. Do I need money to do that? Nope. Do they need my votes? Yep. We'll be right back after this. Kaisi Berick and Apolla, Asteria. We put the studio on hold and we're going to try to add the siren. Go. Let's see if it happens. Should be around. Sure they're going to answer. We're going to try and NDI these people into the screen and see what happens. And there. Have an answer yet? Not yet. Doesn't seem to be ringing. And not yet. Nothing coming through on Skype. Wonderful of Skype. It's not happening. Not exactly sure why. We haven't done a sound check on this, so I'm not precisely why it's not. But how much time we have? 1 minute and 16 seconds. Ah, I think we have him. I don't have any sound yet, but I do see a connection. Are you there?
Yeah, hang on a sec.
All right. Wonderful.
Give me a second.
Okay. Gotta bring the studio back in.
And hit another with his car. He raped young boys and organized orgies with children for other politicians.
The Enigma Channel, intelligent television for planet Earth. EnigmaTV.com.
Looks like it's gonna work.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are EFR, your protection from deception.
Explorers, halfway through the first segment, and I think I have Kaisi Berick and Apolla Asteria on the phone with us. Are you guys there?
Yeah, hey, what's happening, man?
Hey, all right. This is outstanding. Let's see.
Yeah, you got our video going? We're on video too.
I'm looking, hold on. I'm trying to run my NDI source so I can see your video there. I'm trying to get it to work in my OBS. It's not wanting to cooperate for some reason. Hold on 1 second while I try something else. NDI is a slick software that allows us to embed the video into the OBS, but it is kind of cantankerous. Try this one more time. It shows the Skype logo, but it doesn't show you guys. And that's too bad, because I can see you. Your pictures are up there, but not your video yet. So, listen, I watched every single video you did twice. I really, really, really like your music. And, you know, my son does trance music, and he does mixing in front of live audiences. And that's a tough thing to do, but you make it way harder by singing with it. How did you get to where you could do that and make it so powerful?
I don't know, man. I have a lot of influences from everywhere, so from all different types of things.
Well, that's good. I mean, I like the influence. There we go. We have the video. How about that? I tell you,
You got to work.
I love this technology, but I hate this technology. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
This is like mixing, but worse, because you're trying to do all this live. All right, there we go. Yes, now we have it. And now we have live video, and you guys are there, and I'm there, and everything is good. So are you watching the YouTube feed? So the YouTube feed.
So I have the YouTube feed up right now. I just see pictures of us and you talking.
Yes. Hang on 1 second while I see if I can add my video to you. I have a second camera, and you should be able to see my second camera with you.
Yeah.
So here I am with my official
There we go.
Space Force hat. All right.
Nice.
Space Force.
All right. Gosh, it's actually is behaving itself. Unbelievable. Of course, I'm using about 9,000% of my CPU. I want to talk a little about shaman spears. How did you get the idea to take the whole wand and like crystal technology to the point where people could hold it in their hands in such an artistic way? I haven't seen that before anyplace else. How did you come up with that?
Well, I've basically been really inspired by ancient civilizations, lost civilizations like Atlantis, Lemuria, pretty much my whole life. And I was raised by quantum touch energy healers. So my whole life I always kind of knew about the idea of energy and how to work with it. And quantum touch, if you don't know what that is, it's like a modality that's, it's kind of like Reiki, but a little different. Basically, you channel the energy like love, life force, chi, or in Star Wars they call it the Force. It's all basically the same thing, but you just channel it up through your body and out through your hands. And using one of these devices makes it much more powerful because it basically amplifies the energy. So they're filled with magnets, copper coils, and sand I collect from sacred places around the world, and also naturally magnetic hematite sand. Which if you don't know what hematite is, it's a naturally magnetic sand that is actually scientists have found that it is in our brains, which actually gives us the capability of being telepathic because we're all connected intermagnetically.
That's a hematite rock, but yeah, that's
hematite's amazing.
It is. I sometimes find myself just palming that while I'm here on the radio. No one knows it, of course. No one knows it. So this ability, when you provide this to somebody, and now they're able to channel their energy, because I know what that means, because you kind of feel an electrostatic through your heart area, and it comes out into your arms, and then some people can actually focus it down their hands into another being, like to heal them or calm them or remove a migraine or something like that. But when you focus it on a wand, how does that change that focus? What do you do with the wand? No.
Well, basically, I just say it's sort of like an interface with your own energy because of the quartz and the magnetic materials on the inside. Actually, one of my favorite things to do with them is go hiking with them because it's just sort of a meditative experience to be able to hike and like kind of interface with your own energy. But with the energy healing modality that I use, we channel through our hands. So using one of these, channeling it through here, it kind of really amplifies the energy. And what's also interesting about these is I have all of them charged onto an energetic collective through the idea of quantum entanglement. So every sphere that I sell, every new one that I add to the collective makes the whole collective stronger. And the more healers that have one and channel into their own spheres also charge the whole collective. So it's not just me charging all my spheres, it's actually everyone who's ever bought a sphere from me. And I've sold quite a few because I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years now. So it's really fun to sell them at conferences. I like bringing them to like Alien Con and Conscious Life Expo, and I actually kind of use that to kind of fund my speaker experience of going around being a speaker. I kind of use my booth with the spheres to fund that. So it's been really fun.
Outstanding. So some crystals you find work better than others? Is it quartz, or is it heart quartz, or is it a certain crystal that you like using all the time, or do you match it to the person?
I actually go around collecting sand from different places around the world. Like we actually went to Egypt a few years ago, and I got a bunch of sand from the pyramids of Giza and just brought them back with me. So pretty much everywhere I go, I'm just like collecting sand from these different places and materials. Giant Rock and Joshua Tree, there's an entire mountain made completely of quartz crystal right next to it. And if you don't know about Giant Rock, it's the largest freestanding rock in the world. And it's on the same Lee line as the Pyramid of Giza, which is in the 33rd Lee line intersection. So I actually collect a lot of little quartz pieces from there, and I put it down the insides of all these as well. So, and what was interesting about that mountain was that only the chiefs from the tribes were able to go there during the time of like the Hopi Native Americans. So it was considered very sacred to them. So I wanted to kind of put that in my spheres and see how that worked. Also, what's interesting is I do crop circles I found around the world. I paint them on them, kind of with the idea of like the love, like water experiment, where if you write love or hate on water, it changes the molecular structure of water. I wanted to see what would happen if I painted the crop circles on the spheres, how that would affect the message of the spheres.
Awesome. Now, one of the things that both of you do with your music is you retune it not to the same middle C that everyone else uses, but to 432. What does that do for the music? Why did you choose that frequency?
Yeah, so first off, it's concert A is set to 440 hertz normally. And back in the day, during the time of Adolf Hitler's reign, this was changed to 440. So it actually already, for the people that don't know that are watching, it already was 432 as a standard throughout all human history. And these ancient artifacts of instruments have been found everywhere to have the A as 432. And it makes all the other notes in the scale, all the different octaves, all this stuff, perfect numbers. And if you look at 440 hertz, all the other numbers are not perfect numbers. They have decimals and other digits.
I see.
So it's just not a perfectly mathematical balanced number. And
like, think about it, if you've seen cymatics, like the experiment of putting frequencies into sand or water and how it makes the shapes in the water. Mm-hmm. Think about what that's doing to the water in your body if you're hearing a disharmonic frequency, which is on the radio now, was normally played everywhere. Think about how that is affecting you. That's something I think about a lot, and I think it's really interesting.
On the masses.
And I've also heard that Pink Floyd, apparently, they came out with an article recently saying that they'd always been doing 432 hertz, but like secretly. And I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, it vibrates. It's all Fibonacci based. So the Schumann resonance of the Earth, 7.83 hertz. Some register it at 7.86 hertz. but it's about 8 hertz, okay? And it's supposed to be at a perfect 8 hertz. And this 8 hertz number is part of this Fibonacci sequence with 432. And it's all, you know, in the same mathematical field. And then this goes back to the diameter of the sun, the moon. Our left and right brains can synchronize with this proper frequency vibrating through, because our brains give off the same frequency as the Schumann resonance that the Earth magnetic frequency gives off. So if everything is all synchronized with this stuff, it's said that 432 hertz audio vibrations help activate pineal gland, third eye. They help restructure and fix DNA within our bodies and activate apparently unused DNA. So yeah, I mean, it just has a lot of benefits. It's found in the universe everywhere.
And if you look at ancient instruments, they were actually always originally tuned to 432 hertz frequency. But during the Nazi era, the Prime Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, actually changed the 432 hertz concert A tuning to 440 hertz. So he purposely changed it from a disharmonic frequency as like, so this was like a Nazi agenda why it was changed, and it's been that way ever since. And it's really interesting. It's like, why would they go to the trouble of doing that? It's obviously something that is important.
Yeah, well, just
I know in the Fibonacci sequence, as you get further out into the iterations, you fall onto what's called the golden mean, this phi number 1.618 to 1. And if you change the numbers, or you change the, there you go, that's it. It is a ratio between, you know, length and width. You're taking the two numbers in sequence and dividing one into the other. And it doesn't matter how far out you go, 12 numbers, 12,000 numbers, you're still on that slope. But I can see changing that frequency would change the lay of that slope, which means you're no longer on the slope of, we'll call it instantaneous rate of change of creation. You're now slightly destructively interfering with it. That is to say, you're not getting all the power out of the frequency that you're supposed to get, because part of the frequency is destroying itself. That's why you get those decimals each time you do the division.
Yeah, totally. And I feel that on a mass global scale, the whole planet, right? All the music all over the world in every nation, they're all tuning 440 hertz as standard concert A, right? So think about what this is doing to the brains and the cellular structure and the water within, every living creature that's listening to this, billions of people, right? So it's slightly disharmonious in an energy frequency level with our body. So that seems to me like it would cause more stress, more anxiety, more fear, more of these negative emotions in people as a whole on the planet, and compared to maybe if the whole planet was all listening to 432 hertz music. I don't know. I mean, that's a speculation.
Well, you raise a very good question, because then Apolla and I had this discussion. We were up at Pine Top at the Disclosure Con, and that is that humans have kind of a symbiotic relationship with the Earth. Now, when the population of man was kind of small, a few 100 million, it's a big planet, maybe not a whole lot of effect. But now there are 7.8 billion of us here. So if you can scramble all of our frequency resonance with the Earth, then you disrupt that symbiosis with the planet. And I'm wondering to myself, what would happen if we just made a global shift? We just said, 440 be damned. Let's go back to the original frequency. All the scales everywhere. I mean, if the Nazis can do it, why can't we do it? Shift everything back to 432 and watch what happens to the planet. Because now we have 7.8 billion resonant energies, which are human beings, and all of our combined energy, we will shift the average reality of the Earth.
Exactly.
That's our mission.
Okay.
Just think about it. In the music industry, a lot of times a producer or an artist, they'll come out with a song, right? It'll be a big hit. And then other artists and producers try to mimic it and copy things off of it. This is how the whole industry always is, right? So imagine if I was able to launch a 432 hertz music in the mainstream, like, Kiss FM, iHeartRadio, big things like this, where it's going to be globally expanded. imagine all the other producers that produce for the popular big artists. They might be like, you know what? That was a good hit. I'm going to tune my stuff to 432 hertz now, right? So it could be like an effect that, a chain reaction to where many of these people start changing it. All you need is one mega thing like that on a mass scale, and I think it'll inspire a lot of other ones to do it.
It reminds me of a story that Michael Jackson told. They'd finished in the studio. It was about 2:30 in the morning. They finished mixing a song, and Michael said, "Hurry, let's get it copyrighted." Well, his engineer said, "Michael, it's 2:30 in the morning." He said, "Yeah, I know, but if we don't do it, Prince is going to have this by 6 o'clock in the morning." It's the connection, the musical connection. Once it's put into the Akashic record by us, everybody can access it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully tonight,
it's like we're all connected on one.
I notice that a lot. It's like ideas I'll have that I'll just think about. Someone else will like come out with it, or people tell me about ideas they have, and then someone comes out with it right after and they're mad about it. But it's like all our ideas, they're all coming from the collective unconsciousness. We're all one. So it's like, who's going to act on it first? That's up to you.
Well, it's not the collective unconsciousness. It's the collective subconscious. Yeah, subconscious is way faster than our conscious mind. So what we're trying to do is connect the two together, and it's kind of like grabbing onto a car that's going on the freeway. It's going a lot faster. Hopefully, sometime tonight, you guys can share some of your latest music with us right here, because I don't know, we have a pretty good sized group in the YouTube right now, and of course, this is being shared all over the place. People are doing.
I'm sure. Can we play some music for them over this right now? He's wanting to hear the latest.
I sent him the Ocean. He linked it.
Yeah.
Can we play it?
It's one of the new. No, that's gonna sound really messed up.
Yeah, you'd have to like hold it up to the microphone. Like, here, I'll play it on my phone. You can listen to it right here. I did that once. I did an interview that way. It actually came out pretty good, but it was a voice, not singing. So listen, if you guys are listening on YouTube, and by the way, they're also listening to the Truth Frequency Radio Network, which is a live radio network at the same time, and we do take live callers. I should check the caller board just to see if there's anybody sitting there. No one right at the moment. Thank goodness. I thought it would be full of people like, I want to ask them a question. If you get a chance after the show, make sure you go to those links that I put in the chat room, and I'm going to put them down here in the description, in the show description at the bottom. 1,000 people will watch this by tomorrow or the next day, so it will go out everywhere. One of the questions I have is, because the live experience is something else. I've watched my son mix live, and I'm pretty savvy about mixing equipment and engineering, and I noticed that he's kind of up there acting like he's doing a lot, and I realize a lot of it's pre-recorded. But I watched you on RT when you were live on TV, and a lot of that you were creating on the fly right there. And that takes special talent, because there are a lot of weird things going on with the music. You're bringing in dubstep beats, and you're bringing in, feedback and scratching, and then your voice. Somehow you mix the voice through the electronics, and you got a great scream, by the way, great scream. All that delivers the power of your words. And I found that to be just very, very cool.
Something about it. I mean, okay, like a painter, right? They paint. I have a painting over there. She paints. We're just artists. But so a painter that would only use one color, to me, that would be most of the musicians that just have one genre that they stick to. Like there's a country artist, there's a hip hop artist, whatever. That's why on all my albums there's a lot of different things, because I feel like whatever I want to paint that day in the audio universe, put that down, you know what I mean? So,
but in real life he only wears black.
Yeah.
Well, that's because it's no color at all. So this foundation that you have, this a free election foundation, let me see if I got this correctly. No, it's Equal Elections Foundation.
Free and equal elections.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that, because I get a lot of political action committees and groups that sound all really good, and then when you look at some billionaire that's behind it, it's all screwed up. So tell me a little bit about your foundation.
All right, so Christina Tobin, amazing human, she founded it, all right? And many years ago, I don't even remember how I came across her information just out there in the universe somewhere, but I might have stumbled upon the website or something, and I saw what she was doing, and this was when it was just being created, and she already had some success getting some other people on the ballots years ago, and she seemed pretty serious about it, right? So I reached out to her and I said, hey, look, I do this kind of stuff. It's art, it's music, it's socially conscious stuff. You know, we try to insert a little bit of information within it. And we just kind of like artistically fell in love with each other. You know what I mean? Like with what her project was and mine. And we just kind of joined up right then and there. And I took control of being kind of the producer of all the live events, because I have a lot of knowledge with playing hundreds of shows throughout my life. So she wanted to take free and equal elections, and she wanted to turn it into United We Stand Fest, where, you know, all these speakers could come up and give their bit, and artists can perform in between them, and tour around and do that, right? So I stepped in to help her get that ball rolling with the live aspect of things and running the shows and all that. So yeah, it's been great.
They have me start doing my booths with my shaman spears at Politicon every year. And it was really interesting because 2 years ago here in LA, I actually had their booth for free and equal elections was set up right between MSNBC and the Washington Post. And she basically just had me have my shaman spears booth there. So I had my shaman spear set up between MSNBC stage and Washington Post. And all these people are coming up and interviewing me, and they're like, what are you doing here with shaman spears? And I'm just like, you know, I'm just trying to kind of dilute all this negative propaganda that's going on and get some better energy.
It's good times.
Bring some balance in here. It was definitely a really interesting day.
I want to mention something, though, about the actual free and equal elections. So that was kind of the story of, you know, how we all kind of got together. But really, I mean, the main thing is it's very constitutional driven. Okay, so the whole like ideology behind it, and it's whatever's keep people free and keep people's rights, you know, that they can have. So whichever road that takes us down, that's kind of where we always want to stay at, right? We always want to stay. Where are our human and free rights going to get trampled on or not? So with free and equal elections, you know, like you've mentioned before, it's not about who's got the biggest money and the donors coming in and all that. It's not about the party systems, the left and the right and the red and blue and whatever. So that was never mentioned in the Constitution. People don't realize this, that party system is actually unconstitutional. So that was put in later. So we want to kind of take things back to before these party politics came involved, because it hurts humanity.
Right now, it's like basically it's just Democrats versus Republicans, and it's just this side versus this side. And that's just too dualistic, and that's what causes the problem of the separation and the reason why we don't have very good unity right now in this country. And I really believe if every party could run on an equal platform and we had more choices and they could all even speak at the, you know, different debates and everything on an equal platform, and we could vote for them all equally, then we wouldn't have these issues of this separation that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, let the best person who has the best ideas win. You know, I think if everybody was up on CNN, like she said, every different party, call it whatever you want. Don't even call it parties, though. That's the idea. But in the current thing, we have this party, that party, Libertarian Party, Green Party, whatever. So just take all that out, let everybody go up there, narrow it down, maybe some top politics is outdated anyways. That's not even needed anymore. So, but have some top engineers and scientists and mathematicians and even artists, because everybody can look at things differently, and whoever can kind of put that together and bring in the best, this is going to be the best for travel, for housing, for finance market, you know, whoever can bring the best things to the table, let that person win. I think the American voters would easily elect somebody that actually came to the table with some phenomenal ideas. So
there are a couple questions in the chat room I want to address. One person said it's easy to retune a stringed instrument to 432. How do you retune a wind instrument to 432?
Okay, so I do play wind instruments, and I have some I play a lot of instruments. So best way is I take my piano that's in 432 and I tune everything else to that. So I know, like with my saxophone, you can adjust things like how you put the thing further or more in, and then you put the reed up a little bit or down a little bit. And so every instrument's going to have these like slight little variations. On the trumpets and trombones, you can pull out the slide a little bit more or less to make it sharp or flat. So 432 is such a such a minute difference between 440. The basic ear can't really hear it. Okay, side by side, you can then notice it. But for people that want to know, it's such a slight. It's just flat, a tiny bit, a micro of a note. It's all still in that same notes range, but it's just a micro amount flat. So that will be easy in any instrument.
We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. Okay, I put the studio on hold, so the YouTube audience is still tuned into us live, so we can still see everything and hear everything on YouTube for 3 minutes, and the people at Truth Frequency Radio have to listen to commercials. So well, a couple of yeah, wow.
it's not a cigarette. It's down to big tobacco.
Well, the thing about elections and the way our party system kind of developed in the early way the founders had it, we didn't really have Democrats and Republicans back then. We had the Whig Party and the Anti-Federalists.
My great grandpa was Rufus King, who ran on the Federalist Party. I was about to mention that earlier. He ran against Clinton to be vice president to Thomas Jefferson.
Well, the interesting thing is that the DNC didn't come along until 1848, and they immediately started on shenanigans as soon as they formed. But you're right. All the committees that we have in the Congress are set up based on the majority party, or actually who has the most people in Congress. It should be, and I think the way it was originally founded is, it should be based upon the party of the president. But if you go to a partyless system where you just basically have MPs, of course they have Labor Party and whatever the other party is, or you go to a splintered system, then you have to get quorums, you have to get caucuses, you have to pull a majority together. And what happens on the floor is, I think, more healthy debate. What happens now, the way it's made now, is we have think tanks off-site, and they write these massive 6,000-page laws because Congress doesn't write them. These people are drunks. They're just whores. So this 6,000-page law comes down to the Speaker of the House, and when she sobers up, she takes us over to Congress and says, here's the new law. You're all behind it automatically, or I'm kicking you out. And the next thing you know, we have this 6,000-page law. The reason this turns into weakness for us, and the reason we're taking such advantage of it, is because the president does not have line item veto. If he had the ability to go line by line through that 6,000-page law and kick out what he didn't want, it could save the country. But it would also stop all these pork barrel projects from coming through, and people wouldn't get roads through their worthless land, and millions of dollars to their worthless library, and all that bullshit that happens out there. So it's going to take something much bigger than Congress. It's going to take a convention of states to make that happen. All right, we're going to bring the studio back in.
Truth Frequency Radio.
I don't know if that was 432 or not, but it sounds awful good to me. One other questions. Blue Otter in the chat room asked if you think that Grateful Dead tuned their stuff to 432. I don't know. I can't remember.
I would have to play it and then play my piano to it and see if it matches up. And if it does, then it is.
Gotcha.
I haven't analyzed it.
I've never heard an announcement about them doing it, but who knows? They were pretty tapped in.
Real quick, I wanted to mention something I forgot about the free and equal. Also, I called this out many years ago, and when we started working on it and developing the app for blockchain-based technology voting. So I like when Bitcoin came out, I was like, this could be the future with voting, to make sure that there's no way to manipulate it, no way to lose or some ballots over here or there, or switch some stuff with some software like has been that I've seen in real time on a video where the votes were switched, from a virus that was infected into it off a flash drive. So blockchain voting could be the way of the future, and we've teamed up with the guys from Dash that make the Dash cryptocurrency.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so they've been doing some stuff with us a lot the past couple of years now, and have this blockchain app and decently moved along, and we do calls about it, and it's coming along good.
I'm not so afraid of electronic voting. I'm kind of afraid of the mail-in voting, because
that's all bad.
I've seen the ballots RS trucks, driving around the town, and
I got stuff from Amazon I order that doesn't make it here. I definitely not going to trust some people in a closed room somewhere with agendas that want to see a certain party win.
Yeah. The whole idea about blockchain is the purity of the identification. And in order to get that identification, you have to have certain qualifications, like be a citizen, for one thing. We have about 25 million foreign citizens living inside this country. And from our standpoint, we really don't want those people voting in our elections. They can vote in their elections.
They have their own. They have their own governments. They have their own leaders and things like that. So They might be here, and they can be. Maybe they're doing a lot of positive stuff. Those whichever individuals. It's going to be. There's always going to be a dichotomy from bad to good. That's just human nature and everything. But even if they're doing great things, they have their own nation that they're beholden to. For their citizenship, and we have ours that we're beholden to with our citizenship. So, everybody has their own thing, and there's nothing like racist about that or anything. It's just we all come from a nation, and we vote for our representatives of that nation. So it's just how it is.
I'm kind of for. I mean, some people are against this. I know we have a mutual friend in Lauren Pritchard, but. I wouldn't mind each state having their own artificial intelligence in Washington. This AI is going to represent our state, and it's going to answer all of our phone calls and all of our emails 24 hours a day. And I'll bet you it doesn't sleep with its secretary or its interns. And if it makes a mistake, we'll replace it. Control-Alt-Delete, and we'll fix it.
Yeah. It would have to be a blockchain ran AI so that there's no manipulation to the algorithms of its coding.
Right, exactly.
However, it's hard to think, if AI can be a good thing for things like that, or if it can be taken over and hacked. So for me, it's it's really hard for me to really have an opinion on it.
Well, it can be hacked unless it's blockchain.
Because I talk a lot in my presentation, Solutions for Humanity, about the Venus Project. Do you know what the Venus Project is?
I've heard of it, but fill me in.
So they're like circular communities that are like basically conscious communities. It's the way that they do it, they want it all run on AI. But I always say in my presentation, it doesn't have to be run that way. And in the future, we really could have an entire civilization where people wouldn't even have to work, and it could be a bartering society, and AI could run everything. But at the same time, it's like, could that be a good thing or could that be a bad thing? Like, it would be less work for people, but at the same time, who knows if they could be hacked, or that would make it easier for one entity to control everyone if they were able to, if there was someone actually behind the AI running it, so it's really hard to make a decision on that.
I think I saw a cartoon version of that. It was a movie called Wall-E, and everybody was like on a ship and everything was run by AI, and they got all kind of fat and couldn't walk around and stuff. But I like the circular community in the sense that at least the quasi-local metro is growing its own food, making its own energy, fixing its own cars, providing its own jobs, education, all that stuff is good. Trading between those communities for things that this community specializes in, as opposed to that one, like we grow corn here or they grow soybeans there, and we can trade all that stuff so we have a more rounded society. If it is, quasi-capitalist, that is to say, you keep what you make. And then,
the harder you work, the more you get. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're running into that right now in the space program. In the space program, about 10 years ago, it spilled over into the private sector. Now, big corporations like SpaceX and others had the money to get things started, but keep in mind, SpaceX doesn't build all their own stuff. They buy their stuff from a lot of suppliers, people that make retro rockets and control systems and panels and glass and oxygen.
Yeah, Boeing
cleaners.
and Raytheon and everybody. Yeah.
Well, the big corporations, but a lot of small corporations too, because that's Elon's way. He doesn't always buy from big corporations. He likes dedicated suppliers, and that helps everybody along the way. Well, what happened was we saw this gold rush on the moon, this helium-3 and other elements that are on the moon that are just sitting there 2 days away, extremely valuable for Earth.
Titanium, all of it.
Yeah. Our moon is about a third titanium, which is a great resource. It's hard to get to, and it requires more than one company to get there. But what's happened is mostly it's been governments doing it, and governments sort of writing the laws. No, you can't go to the moon. It has to be a government venture. That's all changed now. Now it's game on. It's going to be free enterprise going for the moon. Now Musk is making, or SpaceX is making about $14 million profit per launch. And they're doing it better and more efficiently than NASA can do it. They're recovering all their boosters and things like that. And they're getting ready to launch a Starship, which I think is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But there's some infrastructure missing. You can't just fly up to the moon and land on it like Flash Gordon. You got to have navigation points. You got to have GPS satellites. But we don't have any. There are companies getting ready to make them. And it's going to happen in a big way. It's going to provide millions of jobs. And I think this is how we get to that society you're talking about, where we don't have to spend 18 hours a day trying to feed ourselves.
No,
right.
exactly.
It would be more about working on yourself as a person in that kind of society. And obviously, in my presentation, I talk a lot about how, what was the name of it? Jacques Fresco. He actually always said that we would need a kind of crash landing with our current society before we could go to this. But I like to think, how can we transition to this new society in a smooth way? Like, how does it have to be a complete collapse of our current society, or can we move to this in a much easier way? And that's just something that would be very interesting about it, is if we were able to have most of like the regular everyday, like 9 to 5 sort of work done by machines and AI, then what we would be able to move along so much further as a person and evolve as individuals and focus on, whatever we're interested in, where if it's arts or being a teacher or anything. And I think that would be really amazing.
Exactly.
Because it'd be everyone just doing their purpose,
Yeah, all the talented people out there, they could be doing so much more, but they're stuck trying to survive every day.
Or even not just artist people, but like teachers and
brilliant people,
educators and inventors.
Yeah, if they had the chance to be able to have the resources to invent stuff, they would. But no, they're stuck in some 9 to 5, slaving away as they just get old and die.
Wow, I haven't worked 9 to 5 in a long time. It's been more like 4:30 in the morning till 7 at night, and I've been doing that for a lot of years. So I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and 3D printing now, that's another big part of the Venus project, is we can 3D print entire houses right now in 24 hours, wasting 0 scrap.
I actually picked up this really cool side gig just last week. Since there's no work in entertainment right now. The entertainment industry is basically completely shut down, and that's everything I do besides my Spheres is, I'm usually on set every day as an actor. So I was getting a little worried, and I had a friend come to me, Greg Fleischerman. He builds these amazing temples that's all basically printed out, like laser printed, and they're all sacred geometry, and they fit together like puzzles. And most of these have been at Burning Man and Lucidity and all these different festivals. But he was interested in my work, and I was interested in his, and we met up and talked last weekend. And he actually invited me to be his assistant. So the past week, I've been learning his software program on how to build, and I've just been helping build his structures. Next week, we're going to be building a whole temple, and it's really interesting. It's not something I ever really thought I would be doing, but I find it extremely fascinating.
They have had a contest at several of the universities over the last couple of years about 3D printing on the moon and on Mars. So one of the projects is we're going to launch a gantry-style 3D printer up on the moon, going to use lunar soil, bind it together, and that thing's going to sit up on the moon and 3D print a building.
Perfect.
Wow.
Now, once
That's amazing.
Now, I don't really agree with that. I wrote my papers on it and said you can't build this on the surface of the moon, because that will not protect you against solar radiation. When the sun begins to have its fits again and sending out these high energy particles, it'll just sterilize the surface again. What they need to do is build these in the volcanic vents, and we've identified several vents that go back like 15 kilometers into the moon. Send the 3D printers up there and 3D print that thing shut, and then we'll engineer an airlock.
Remember when they sent that satellite into the moon, and the moon resonated and rang like a bell for days and days? There's theories, it's hollow in there, and there's a lot of stuff built up inside there.
Well, you're crossing a couple of projects. The ring like a bell happened when the fuel tank of the Eagle lander fell back to the moon empty, and when it landed, they had put seismographic microphones on the moon, and when they heard that fuel tank hit the surface of the moon, and it rang for a couple of hours. That was really remarkable, but that was way back in the 70s. The L-Cross mission, which happened in 2006, they actually dropped part of a failed satellite that they were measuring spectrographically things on the moon. They disconnected it and launched the front part of the satellite, which dropped onto the South Pole. And when it landed, it, of course, made a huge plume. It didn't explode, but it hit like a meteorite. And then they flew the spectrographic part of the satellite right through that plume. And they gathered the measurement, sent it back to Earth, and then it splatted into the moon itself. We got the measurement of that soil from the South Pole of the moon, and that's how we discovered there's water there. And that's why everybody's going crazy about getting up to this, what's called the Shackleton crater, which is upside down. It's bigger than Mount Everest, and it's full of frozen water.
Nice.
It's amazing. I mean, that's jet fuel sitting there on the moon, frozen. It could be used as a refueling station.
We've been trying to get up to the space station and go perform. So it's kind of my seat goal.
I think Tom Cruise is going to beat you. He's going up there too. Actually, he's going to film.
We want to bring 432 hertz music to the space station.
Yeah.
And to the moon.
What do you think about the whole conspiracy with the radiation in the moon and like the astronauts supposedly not going there,
not being able to make it past the Van Allen belt?
Well, I did some studies on that. Of course, I grew up in that era, and I watched it with great interest. And I did a co-op at JPL, and most of my friends went to JPL and went on to Hughes Satellite. And in fact, one of my friends owns a satellite now. So I know the era pretty well. At that particular time, in the late 60s and early 70s, there was a lull in the Van Allen belts. We don't know why, but it was like the damn thing just went to sleep for a while. So they did a calculation, and they said, well, if we build a shield in a section of the orbiter, which is where they hid when they went through it, and we go through it at about 30,000 miles an hour. We're only going to be in it for a couple minutes. we'll be able to survive. And that's what they did. And all those astronauts have survived a long time. They showed no ill effects from that. But today, it would be very tough to do. That's why we sent the Orion up there last year. We put some instruments into seats. We sent Orion out. We brought it back. We parachuted and landed in the water, and we measured it. And the shields of the Orion held. But the walls of the Orion are about 5 times thicker than the walls of the Apollo. So they built it with that in mind. However, that doesn't mean that they can last for 7 months going to Mars. And quite frankly, I don't think I could spend 7 months in this office, let alone that capsule. It had to be way bigger. I need like a gym, and that pool they had on passengers, that would be cool too. And, you know, a big window and maybe some artificial gravity. I'm not going in a aluminum can to Mars. It ain't gonna happen.
Sign me up somewhere. I'm waiting to get signed up somewhere because I know they're going to need someone to play piano on Mars or the moon. You know, people want that.
In the lunar caverns, a big pipe organ in the lunar caverns.
That's all I want. This is all I want. Why is this so hard to ask for?
It might take a couple of years, but you could pressurize those volcanic vents up to about, let's say, 8,000 feet altitude, which is not a full atmospheric pressure, but it's enough to breathe and walk around and stuff. You'd have 1/6 gravity, which means I would weigh about, well, way less than I do now. And I bounce around and stuff. And you could actually work and live up there for a year or two and then come back to Earth with no bad effects. You spend a year weightless, you're going to have big problems. You're going to have some blockages and some trouble somewhere. You need to and besides, if you send a society up there, like if you ever watched the series The Expanse, where all those people are working weightless for generations, you start having babies in a weightless environment, they're never coming to Earth. Right. They never would survive here.
Wow, I didn't think about that before.
So, yeah, I mean, we would have to build like domes, you know, like facilities that have gravity induced in them as well then, right?
Well, there's a couple of ways to induce gravity. The smart way, of course, is acceleration. Just plain old linear acceleration. You accelerate at about 1/3 of a G for about 2 months, turn that ship around, decelerate at 1/3 of a G, and you're there. And you've had some artificial gravity during the whole trip.
But not for the moon. For living on the moon, though.
Well, for living on the moon, you'd have 1/6 gravity, but that's enough to keep all the physiology working. You'd still have to, you know, do physical work, but hey, you could lift a car and, you know, work yourself out.
Nice. She could do that now. I've seen it happen.
Right.
I was there.
Cool. That's very cool. Let's talk a little bit about, because one of the things that you're so passionate about in the interviews that you do on YouTube, and again, I highly recommend go to these links, watch some of these interviews with Kaisi, because it's very powerful stuff, even going all the way back to 2013. Let's talk a little bit about what the deep state is, what the Illuminati is, and how that is. I mean, it's showing up now because 30 million of us are sitting at home watching YouTubes like this. But now they're exposed. Now we see them for who they are. We couldn't really see them back in 2013, could we?
No, you know, it's interesting because the Operation Mockingbird propaganda machine, they really kicked it up a notch when they lost control. They've had, you know this, but maybe some of your listeners don't, but they've had Illuminati-controlled puppets in positions of office for administration after administration for a long time now.
Sure.
And for the first time, you know, I try to, like I said, I'm not on the right or left of anything. So I try to just tell people, whether you hate or love Trump, that doesn't even matter. Set that aside for a second. I just want them to know that this was somebody that was not in that club. So he wasn't in it. They're upset about that because they have this way of trying to prop up. They're not beholden to any nation, these people. You know, some people call them Illuminati. Some people can call them, I mean, there's so many terms, but I don't even like using the Illuminati because people just think it's like funny and like whatever.
The cabal.
Yeah, the cabal. I mean, and then they have puppets. Okay, so their people that they control are in positions of science, academia, textbook writing, history writing. Media is just one of their branches that they control using this Operation Mockingbird, so they can make the population think a certain narrative. Like, okay, Iraq has WMDs. They got weapons of mass destruction. We need to go over there. We need to topple this guy, whatever, whatever. And then the whole Congress, the whole population, they see this news cycle nonstop. And then they think, yeah, oh my God, we got to go do something over there. They think they're being heroes. We need to go save these people. We need to go do this and do that. When it was all just part of a certain narrative that the CIA wanted people to believe so they can go infiltrate another nation for whatever purposes, for banking, for resources, for control, for geographical location reasons, ley line reasons. So this Illuminati people, they control these bankers and military and the government and all this stuff. So it's really deep. And Trump was the first time that someone that wasn't part of that came in. And what he's been doing on paper is reversing all these things step by step as much as he can, because he has resistance on both sides of the aisle.
Right.
So, he can't trust anybody around him. And, he's a crazy New Yorker. Yeah, he talks trash. He talks a lot of stuff that maybe somebody in that such a prestigious role should not be speaking like, but he is who he is, whatever. There's a saying that God uses imperfect vessels to deliver the perfect message. So it is what it is. He has a purpose, and they're trying to get rid of him so they can install another one of their operatives, which can then bring China back online again more. Crash our dollars so that the Chinese becomes the world reserve currency, where everything around the world is traded in, oil, all that stuff. So they have more people there, and they look at us like we're a corporation. America's a corporation, China's a corporation, all the citizens are employees. So they have more people there, so they have more employees. They want access to that.
I think that's a very accurate depiction of everything. And when they hit the mainstream or the fake stream news and they say that the president is tearing our country apart, they're right. He is tearing their country apart. He is tearing apart what they have built.
To me, just the fact that he's demonized so much by the mainstream media means to me that he must be doing something right. Those are the people that, if they're against you, then you're probably doing something
There's
right.
another saying, you know a man by his enemies.
That's what I said. During the election, I was, I said, well, one of my friends at work said, okay, well, who are they going to run against Trump? I said, I already know who they're going to run against Trump. Really? Who? I said, it's going to be Trump and not Trump.
Yeah.
Whoever's in that not Trump slot, that's who's going to get 47% of the vote. And he said, well, I could see that. That's what I did in the last election. Hillary, not Hillary.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what happened.
I don't support every single thing he does. I don't support every single thing any other presidents do. There has been things that I do support from all of them, even the ones that are war criminals right now that caused insane amounts of wars, drone strike everything, bomb everybody. There's still some things that they do that needs to happen, and they have a role to play. Everybody has a role to play. And I feel like Trump's role, whether he knows it or not, I don't think he knows it, but I think his actual role was to show people for the first time that an independent, because if you go back to him and Jesse Ventura, I'm actually friends with Jesse Ventura's son. I've worked on some music stuff for him in Hollywood, Tyrell. But if you go back to Jesse Ventura and Trump in the 80s, I think it was the 80s, not 90s, pretty sure it was the 80s, they were on film saying if one of them was to ever run for anything, they would have to say that they were a Democrat or Republican. But they're both independents. And Jesse Ventura, we know he's an independent for sure. So
the one thing I like about Donald Trump is he's been saying the same thing for 30 years.
Yeah, and that's true.
And I hate that about politicians. When we elect them, they give these great speeches. They do well in the debates. They wear a good suit. But as soon as they get elected, they go back to the same damn thing that the other guy was doing.
It's the establishment narrative. They have to keep going on with what the CIA wants, what the people above them want. Exactly.
I often wonder how many actually came in wanting to bring a good change and were blackmailed by the CIA or like forced down a certain route, even if maybe they originally didn't want to go that way.
Yeah, probably.
I'm sure. I mean, John Brennan was head of the CIA, and during transition, and I went to Trump Tower during transition to talk about the future of energy. But during that period of time, they killed Russian diplomats. They even killed Kislyak. It was like, what the hell is going on? They're killing people. They were trying to. Yeah, they were trying to cover their tracks.
They're dark.
We're going to take a quick break. Can you hang through the break just a little bit?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. More America Free Radio coming at you right after this. Okay, maybe right after this. Okay, we've muted the studio and it's just us and the YouTubers. Let's see what we've got in the chat room here. Oh my, let's see. Anyone else notice the image flashing across Brooks' screen? Yes, it's a new camera. Give me a break. I might have to send this one back too. Let's see.
You know, real quick, I wanted to finish up a point.
Yeah.
With this Trump thing. And like I said, I'm not saying be pro or against, okay? I'm just saying there's a purpose. And his role was to show the world that there is a bias in media and that it is controlled by something above it, okay? That's all it was. It was a revolutionary act for him to call it out, to showcase the corruption in the FBI and the CIA and the media. And I feel like, honestly, that was his main role, to wake people up to this thing, to the deep state, to these people that we don't elect into power, and they're there for a lifetime through administration after administration after administration. So I think that was his
It's amazing. So many great documentaries have been coming out about Project Mockingbird and like Out of the Shadows. That was an amazing documentary that like a lot of people I know that wouldn't normally be into conspiracy stuff and thought it was all a joke. I showed them that and they're like, oh, okay, I think I see what you mean by all this now. And it's really
yeah, there was
amazing.
a lot of stuff that we thought was conspiracy theory because we heard it shag nastied in the press so much. But then Out of the Shadows played that great clip from Liz Crokin. I had Liz Crokin on this program, and she talked about it on this planet. Isn't that weird? And she talked about this very same thing, this oath and covenant that is made by this dark cabal abusing children. That's how they make their way into getting the trust of this dark Nephilim force that's ruling the world behind the scenes. The interesting thing is, as Trump has gone to war with these people, fearlessly I might add, they've had to lay down their masks and come out in the public square and pick up their axe to do battle. And now we see them for who they are.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's incredible. I know a lot of people I know have been sharing like the celebrities going crazy right now over social media, and it's like if you look at like their Instagram or Facebook posts or whatever, it shows all these people just trolling them like, "Yo, where's your adrenochrome at?" It's hilarious. It's like everyone's seeing through this now, especially with Bill Gates. That's been a really big thing. Like a lot of people that I never. We're in a
Did you see the clips from They Live? Somebody went back in the 80s and pulled the clips from the movie They Live with Roddy Piper, and all the signs said, Bill Gates is God, live in fear, coronavirus. It was like, oh my gosh. Did they see this or what? All right, let's bring the studio back in.
Biggest CFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
So while we were talking on YouTube, while Truth Frequency Radio was running their shameless commercial breaks, because we got to keep the lights on, it's tfrlive.com, tfrlive.com. If you missed any of tonight's broadcast, you can go to the archives at /X2 Radio, and you can look at any one of almost 300 episodes there, going all the way back to, several years. Lots of good things if you missed it. Put it on behind your workstation while you're working on your spreadsheets, or listen to it while you're rolling down the road, listening to those repeats on the AM radio, and pick up some really good stuff. But during the break, we were talking about the social media and how all the celebrities seem to be coming on in their home studios, in their Bed Bath and whatever, except something is missing. Like they look old, like wow, what happened to you? And they're like crazy, like, hey, nobody gave me a script to read. All of a sudden I have to speak for myself, and look at me, I'm a horse's ass. Well, the thing is that social media, we kind of trusted for a long time. I mean, we did. We trusted them with our kids' pictures, and we trusted them with our songs and our poetry and links to our website and everything. But it turns out that they're not so trustworthy, because they have kind of formed what's called a censorship board. Now, this should scare you, because when it comes to elections, the most important thing is free speech. We have to be able to speak, especially about government and about politics and about the way we feel, whether you're on one side or the other or in between. The electorate, that's us. That would be you and me, the people that actually put your name on the line and go vote. We listen to all the candidates, we weigh all the merits of each candidate, and then we go choose for ourselves, for judges and district attorneys and sheriffs and of course presidents. We already know that the global syndicate is not going to allow free speech. We're ready for it, but we didn't expect social media to get involved and to create a kind of censorship board, which means when you put a post on, or you repost an article, or you share this interview tonight, because we're talking about some pretty crazy right-wing stuff here right now, they may censor this. They may say, oh, we're not going to allow that deceptive information on our social media, and they have just limited your free speech. So I would like to know, in this equal elections foundation that you guys are working on, what can we do to overcome this?
Man,
I think I've talked about this in my presentations, I think it's about citizen-funded journalism. Because, a lot of the alternative media organizations, they're doing that now. And I think that actually works really well. If it's not a mainstream media that's being paid off by, the Rothschilds or whoever to go on a certain narrative, then that means that they can say whatever narrative they want. As long as, they're just selling products and the citizens are funding it, then why would they need to go to someone else for more money? And of course, anyone can really be, take that blackmail, I guess. But you would hope that maybe if we could have citizen-funded journalism, that would work out. I feel like that's really the only way to go.
Well, journalism is only part of it, because you're in the film industry.
The censorship of the
the TV, the radio, because right. You take her idea of the citizen journalist stuff, but then where are they going to put it out at so people can hear it and watch it and see it? That's still controlled by a handful of corporations. So honestly, it's a really big problem. It's bigger than most people even really think about. How it's just so monopolized, and all the gatekeepers are so corrupt. It's bad. Even though you can say, oh, let's just go to a different platform then and start it there. Well, the problem is all the people are already on certain platforms, and people do not want to break their habits.
It's almost like we need a constitution just for the internet, like a new constitution that's made for the internet. Like a lot of people have talked about how with the internet censorship, like one way of doing it would be, what if we saw the internet as like a place, like a country, but not just because it almost is like a place. So what if we had like a constitution that was similar to our own for these sort of like a virtual place, so that's one way of looking at it. But definitely
well, the good news
like
is
the CIA has so much in all the media and everything. It's like really it goes back to the government, it's
well,
these companies
I think the neat thing about the internet is it's kind of a limitless frontier. It doesn't really have a central choke point. Like there are lots of social media places like We Go One, We Go All, there's MeWe, there's Gab, there's Minds, there's HookTube, there's BitChute, there's all these, but not many people are there.
It's not the masses.
Right. It's because we have this kind of herd mentality. We got to be where the herd is. And this is what draws me to the other forms of media, like music and like film. Now, of course, the dark side knows this too. And they realize that both of those methods of communicating with people, of inspiring people, take money. And the money for the last 25 years has come from one of three places: for big films, like in the big studios, the big productions, and that is the CIA, DARPA, and China. And China is a big influence on our movies. Like, no. You can't disparage China in this movie. You got to change it to like North Korea, or change it to, and you can't put a Taiwanese flag on this airplane.
China's always the one saving the world in like every single movie. If you look at it, like 2012 comes and saves everyone with their ships. It's China.
It was Japan. It was Godzilla. I remember this. It wasn't always China. But I get your point.
No, recently, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And what was it? What movie? It was was it The Martian? It was the one with Matt Damon, and he was on Mars, and the ship that rescued them, that went around and restocked the ship to go back, it was Chinese.
Oh yeah. See, and there's nothing against any of the Chinese people. That's not what we're discussing.
Right.
We're discussing different governments, their own versions of their CIA, their own tools of propaganda, their own power and control, claiming of resources around the globe, trying to oust other leaders in places. This is the group that we're talking about when we speak of Chinese. Because a lot of people,
the communist
party, yeah, and this goes for any nation too. I don't want to just say, screw China, whatever. It's their government is doing some awful stuff.
The Communist Party, the Chinese Communist Party.
I don't want people, really in this day and age we live in now, where everybody's like, oh, you're just racist against Chinese now. My step parents and step brothers, they're all Asian. So it's just that's not true. It's just, we see when corruption is happening in a certain specific area, whether it's within our own government or whether it's in the whole globe full of many governments. We need to focus on those corrupt people, those corrupt groups.
Sure.
So we're not attacking based on the people of China or anything, but their government is doing extremely corrupt things right now, and these things need to be brought forward to attention. So I just want people to understand that are watching. We have to focus on things that are really wrong right now and fix them. That's all it comes down to.
We're not the only people that see that. The infamous Mr. Xi. I've been to China lots of times, and Wuhan many times, and Mr. Xi is very typical of the upper echelon of China. They're perfectly molded, perfectly trained, perfectly stoic. They carry the party water all the time. And this is the main reason why, I know you're going to think this is crazy, but China's never won a war, ever. In like thousands and thousands of years, China's never won a war outside of China. Everybody beats them. Now, they've had wars inside their country, all kinds of dynasties fighting one another, and they have great philosophies about war. But outside of their country, they always lose. And the reason is because once the Chinese soldier is sent outside of China, they run. They want to have a ranch in Oklahoma. They don't care about winning for China. There's no patriotism among the people, only in the party. They want freedom as badly as we do.
I mean, the Communist Party goes against its own people. It's a terrible thing. It's horrible.
It is a horrible thing to realize, and we now do after, what, 5 months of this.
In much of our own government goes against its people.
Yeah.
You know? So this exists in every nation, and I think it's coming to light more now, you know, within the past handful of years. So this stuff's important.
It is shocking, and I think people need to come to terms with this. It is shocking to realize that there is a government, or is a force, I call it the global syndicate, it could be the cabal. They were perfectly happy sacrificing 300 million Chinese as long as they could wipe us out. Now, they didn't do it. The virus turned out not to be as bad as they thought it was, but that was their intention. And now you got to go, holy crap, what's going on here?
Yeah, now look at it, or you want to say something?
I think it went completely against what they were trying to do. Like, it's almost like with this virus, like I heard a lot of FBI people, I think it was John DeSouza, I heard him say that it's almost like the way they came out with it, it would be a way that conspiracy people and everyone would go along with it. But really what it did was backfire on them, and it caused more people to wake up. And it's kind of almost been a blessing in disguise, I think.
Well, they forgot they were Americans, and we like going to the beach. And, you know, my hair is getting a little long, and I haven't had a pedicure in 5 months, and I'm getting pretty pissed off about it.
Yeah. I mean, whether it was released on purpose or not, you know, we're probably never going to know that unless some whistleblowers come forward, but they're not going to, I don't think, on that kind of aspect. But it doesn't even matter if it was on purpose or not. What matters is, how can that be used against somebody that's not part of this Illuminati cabal?
Sure.
Right? So how can this be used? Well, for one, it was able to, and this is based on the hype of it, right? It made...
Oh, your video froze for a second.
Yeah, it made people sell off all their stocks, which crashed the economy of their political opponent. Because you have to remember, China and a lot of these people in the left party, especially Biden and the people around him, they are fused with China. Biden's son, you know, he works on Chinese boards. Same with the Ukrainian boards. They have sold out so much of United States stuff. We're talking media, we're talking Hollywood, to China over decades now. So China and Biden, they're a family, all right? So they're a business family. So they're like, how can we regain control for the next 4 years? All right, we can't let Trump, an anti-Illuminati guy, like I said, love him or hate him, but he's not part of their crew. So how can we get him not in? Maybe it was on purpose. Maybe they're just taking advantage of it as an accident, but they overhyped it so they can crash his economy. And then they put him in a position where if he keeps everything open, they're going to attack him. Every person that dies, they're going to attack him based on that. If he closes everything, they're going to attack him still because he's taking away our rights and things like that, right? So They put him in a position where he's kind of screwed either way. So it's very fascinating, though. I mean, they're really it was a good move on them on an evil genius level. You know,
what really worries me is the microchips and what Bill Gates is doing. I don't understand why this guy is not in jail or something. It's like, how can he come out and say that, you know, he's going to cure the virus with this vaccine when he can't even cure the viruses on Windows?
Yeah. Well, I got news.
Like he's not a doctor.
I got news for you. We walk around in a fog of viruses and microbes all the time, and we fight them off with our own immune system. If it wasn't that way, we would have been dead a long time ago. Yeah. We have a caller, so I want to go ahead and take this call because it could be interesting. Caller in Michigan, you are on the air. What's on your mind? Sometimes they call in and then they disappear, just like that one did. It's like, uh-oh, I got exposed. Excellent points. Now, you talked about the strategy or the reason why the cabal accidentally or on purpose, this virus made it into the mainstream. And somehow the World Health Organization, the CDC, the Democrat Party, they kept it all quiet just to make sure the infection could get as far as possible. Because
let it spread.
They wanted to accomplish two things. You remember back in November, December, January, The global syndicate was getting their ass kicked everywhere, all over the world. France, the yellow vest. We had Venezuela.
The protesters in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, that's another
They're
one.
not there.
Oh my gosh. I mean, what did they try to get rid of these people? They beat them, they gassed them, they shot them. Nothing worked.
This was a Hail Mary. They threw a Hail Mary.
That was a big problem. And the other was, as you nailed it, was the Trump economy. They spanked them both in 21 days without firing a shot.
Absolutely. That's what I say. I mean, honestly, I have to give it up to them. It was brilliant on their end.
I also feel like it's almost a way of rolling out the Agenda 2130 that, you know,
All roads lead to climate change. You're right. I mean, look at the skies.
Yeah.
Look at the water. We love it just the way it is. We can't let humans come back and ruin it.
Exactly. And they're totally using it. You see all the articles like, oh, there's dolphins now in the Venice canals. And, you know, it's like, I mean, that's a great thing, I think. But, you know, you can tell that it's like they're using this in every possible way, but especially with taking our rights away. It's almost like an experiment. Like, how many people will not stand up and, you know, will just give their rights away over this?
Now, think about this, okay?
Exactly
so
right.
this virus was released, okay? Accident or purpose, who cares? It was put out. It ended up being, after they did the antibody tests, you know, it ended up showing that it's just maybe slightly worse than the flu, of a slight percentile, okay, with a mortality rate. So it really was no big deal. But the scare that went into it was able to collapse entire nations around the world. Now check this out. What if they were just using this as kind of a tester, just to throw a Hail Mary last minute to kind of disrupt things because everything was going so much in a certain direction? So now they're tweaking it. They're using the gain of function technology. Right? So they're gonna add some tweaks to it. They're gonna release it again maybe in the fall when the next flu season starts. This time it'll be a little bit different. This time maybe it'll have the mortality rate that they really want, and completely put everything, the whole planet under martial law.
Let's just hope that that doesn't happen, and that enough people wake up to put a stop to this situation.
Yeah, I
don't
hope
like to
that's
talk
what
about
happens.
things like that happening because it can become like a self-fulfilled prophecy.
I just like
I'm
to
not gonna end up on that
strategize.
timeline.
Yeah, I'm just strategizing.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I've been to the future and I've looked back at this, and what I see is some short-sightedness, because right now we have 30 million people that have been put out of work. So I ask people, how much longer do you think it'll be before we reach this herd immunity? I mean, we flattened the curve. The hospitals can handle it. We have a cure. Right. You're thinking maybe August? Oh, no, longer than that. Well, how about September? How about October? Yeah, October's good. I say, tell you what, I'll give you November. By November, it's nothing but a bad memory of a cold season.
Well, it's here forever now. So people need to get used to it. We need to just accept it and move on.
So it's May now. In November, let's say it's 5.5 months. 30 million people are going to go back to work in 5.5 months. By my math, that's about 5 to 6 million jobs per month. Now that is positive. That is something that's going to change the whole narrative, the whole energy spectrum of the world. 5 million people a month. We've never even had 1 million people a month going back to work. Wait till you see June's numbers.
Nice. Good positive thought.
I agree with the story. It's going to be an amazing positive experience, and it's going to blow the left right out of the water.
I hope. No, I really hope. I hope. I don't want them to tweak some stuff and release something worse, man.
And as an actress in Hollywood, I wonder how this is going to be affecting the entertainment industry. Like the whole adrenochrome thing that has been going on during this whole thing. Like, you know, it's like people that weren't normally conspiracy theorists before, they're all looking at these celebrities in a different way now. And how is that going to...
Yeah,
I've heard a lot
those people
about,
aren't going to come back now.
Even start back up again, you know, like they're saying they're telling me that even if it does start back up like soon, that we'll all have to be tested as we're going in the studios, and we won't be able to just go to Crafty and get food anymore. We'll have like boxed like lunches and.
Well, I have the antibodies, so I'm good. I've already had it. I'm immune now. I can't catch it, and everybody I know is that way too. We're already immune here. So like I was in a favorite home improvement store this weekend, and about 20% of the people in there had masks on, and we didn't. And somebody asked me, how come you don't have a mask on? I said, because I'm immune. Why would I wear a mask if I'm immune? I can't give it to you. You can't give it to me. So join the herd, baby.
What's interesting is my mother got it, and she got tested, came back positive, right? And she's in her 60s. And I told her, I'm like, and now she's an ex-pharmacist, okay? So I spent my whole life hanging out at the pharmacy, you know, in that world. And I told her, I'm like, well, what are you gonna do? You want to get on hydroxychloroquine and zinc and whatever? And she's like, yeah, I don't know. You know, what do you think? And I was like, honestly, let me give you CBD oil every day, because that's going to keep the inflammation from the lungs down, and it's going to keep the fever inflammation down. All right.
Yep.
So I overnighted her some of that stuff, and I told her the zinc's important for protecting the cells. So take the CBD oil daily for the inflammations and keep the fever down and the lungs, you know, not inflamed, and take the zinc to protect the cells, take the vitamin C to boost the immune system. That's it. Those two things. She beat it in a week.
Yeah.
Didn't have a bad fever, didn't have a bad cough. It was nothing. She said the flu was way worse. So it comes down to people with compromised immune systems.
Sure.
Or people that eat very unhealthy. So they have
Which those
lack
people
of nutrients.
would have issues with just getting the flu or pneumonia.
Those are the people that die from the flu. Yeah,
kind of
same
issue.
people.
And how do you get a compromised immune system? Well, you take vaccines, or you do IV drugs, or you engage or have a blood transfusion, and you have to take immunosuppressants. But other than that, you know, the human body is built pretty damn good. We have a variety of levels of defense systems, and that's really what hurts us with the flu, is our defense systems get the best of us.
We're constantly trying to achieve homeostasis, and it's really incredible what our bodies can do. Like, people are even, like, I've heard a lot about 5G affecting us, and I almost think, like, I've heard of, like, beetles in Japan. There were beetles where Hiroshima happened, that within just the time since Hiroshima happened, these beetles actually grew these antennas that detected the radiation, so they couldn't walk in them.
Oh, wow.
So I'm, like, thinking, like, if these beetles can, you know, evolve that quickly, what about us, you know? Like, obviously 5G is a bad thing, but I don't think it's a good idea to live in a state of fear about it and about these kind of things, because I mean, our bodies, like I said, we're constantly trying to achieve homeostasis, and I think it's incredible what we can do.
And we have to realize that our gene pairs aren't really numerous enough to make all the proteins that make our body. Our gene pairs have a wide variety of choices of proteins that we can make. And those choices are made based upon our environment, on what we eat, how much radiation we're exposed to, how much sunlight we get, sleep we get, and our consciousness inside of us. The more positive and more loving and high frequency we are, the better the body works.
Definitely. That's something I've always learned from my uncle growing up, like learning about energy work. Everything starts on a vibrational level. So, you know, pretty much everyone who has cancer, anything like that, usually it's something to do with repressed emotions, like things that happened to you in your past that you never really had a feeling of forgiveness for. And I actually did a post about that right when this was coming out, because for me, I haven't been sick in over a year now, or about a year now. And that's saying a lot for me, because I always would get sick like several times throughout the year. Normally I'd get colds super easily. And I just kind of, like, you know, the past year I worked through things within myself, and I was able to clear some things out. And I feel healthier than I've ever been. So I definitely think health-wise, that's something very important, is to, you know, think about what you can release within yourself to make your vibration on the best purest possible.
No question about it. And a good wand. And don't forget that this program, especially if you follow me on social media, is designed to treat, cure, and prevent the disease of ignorance. I have so enjoyed having you guys on the program tonight. This has been amazing.
We enjoy being here.
We're gonna post it everywhere, and we're gonna get back together, and we're gonna do some live stuff in the next 12 months. It's gonna be great.
Awesome.
You all have an amazing week. Make it productive. Be safe out there, and lead us to the higher vibration.
All right, man. You too.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right, later.
Good night, all. All right. So that was Kaisi Berick and Apolla, Asteria. I know you enjoyed them. I always enjoy seeing them. And you got to listen to Kaisi's music because it is phenomenal. If you don't like trance music, I can't help you. All I can tell you is just listen to it. Just feel the energy of it. Catch the flow of it. And I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. So we will make a quick transition. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll be back with the last hour of America Free Radio. I am so glad that all of you were able to be with me tonight. We'll see you as soon as we get back after the break. More X Squared Radio coming after you right after this.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like Beyond the Veil with Chris and Cherie Geo, X Squared with Brooks Agnew, Paranormal Portal with Brent Thomas, Sharonism Raw with Sharon and Missa, Fearless with Frank Castle, Strange World with Mark Sargent, The Eye of Ra with Ra Castaldo, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray, Ironworks with Josh Corey, The Kev Baker Show, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR-LIVE. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
Reopening states, too fast or not fast enough? I'm Ann Carrick, Fox News. What will happen as states reopen? Epidemiologist Dr. Michael Osterholm from the University of Minnesota on NBC's Meet the Press.
We can't stay locked down for 18 months. But at the same time, when you have cases increasing, deaths increasing, healthcare workers without adequate protective equipment, and we're suddenly going back to what was once our normal lives, that's not a safe place to be. We can't do that and not expect to see a major increase in cases.
Dr. Osterholm says 60 to 70% of the country eventually will have the virus. Vice President Pence now voluntarily limiting contact with others after an aide tested positive for the coronavirus last week. A spokesperson clarifying the vice president is not in quarantine and plans to be at the White House Monday. He has tested negative for the virus repeatedly. 3 of the nation's top scientists taking similar steps after possible exposure. It's a stark reminder even one of the nation's most secure buildings is not immune from the virus. Prime Minister Boris Johnson addressing the United Kingdom with a multi-step plan to emerge from coronavirus lockdown.
We said that you should work from home if you can and only go to work if you must. We now need to stress that anyone who can't work from home, for instance, those in construction or manufacturing, should be actively encouraged to go to work, and we want it to be safe for you to get to work. So you should avoid public transport if at all possible.
The UK recorded more than 220,000 cases and nearly 32,000 deaths. Johnson crediting the people with preventing the situation from being far worse. On Wednesday, a 1-hour limit on outdoor exercise will be lifted. Social distancing guidelines remain in place. America's listening to Fox News.
Into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back to X Squared Radio. So glad to have you here. We're coming to you live from the America Free Radio studios, located somewhere east of the Appalachian Mountains. So what we see out there is 1929 all over again, except the U.S. unemployment rate hit 14.7% in April, the highest rate since the Great Depression, as 20.5 million jobs vanished in the worst monthly loss on record. The figures are stark evidence of the damage the Wuhan virus has done to a now shattered economy. The losses reflect what has become a severe recession caused by a sudden business shutdown in nearly every industry except ours. Nearly all of the job growth achieved during the 11-year recovery from the Great Recession has now been lost in 1 month. The difference is that we didn't crash the money supply. We didn't eliminate the value. The value is still there. The companies are still there. The workers are still there. The optimism is still there. The jump in unemployment rate didn't capture the full devastation wrought by this business shutdown. The Labor Department said its survey takers erroneously classified millions of Americans as employed in April, even though their employers have closed down. These people should have been classified as on temporary layoff and therefore unemployed. If they had been counted correctly, the unemployment rate would have been nearly 20%. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing about 1 in 5 people out of work. Although I must say, all the people that I know are all working. We're all in essential industries. I'm in an essential industry. My son's in an essential industry. My roomies are in essential industries, except for one who is an attorney. Attorneys are not essential. I'm kidding. He's working from home, which you can do as an attorney if you have access to the database. The point is that this is all going to come back, and it's going to come back so fast it's going to be amazing, because all that really has to happen, all the business licenses are there, all the payroll accounts are there, all the money is still there, most of it. Some of these companies have had to burn a lot of their cash to pay for mortgages and rent and things like that, and pay for inventory that normally they would have 90 days to pay for with income. They don't have income, so they have to pay for the inventory. And a lot of the companies that didn't deserve that money pulled that money out of the coffers, and so that money has to be put back in. It's going to take some time to recover it. But the point is, we shut down a lot in March and April and May. But June, July, and August, everything is going to go back in the other direction. Already in our state here, east of the Appalachian Mountains, things are beginning to open up. Yes, you're probably going to see more infections, but you know what? We're not afraid of the infections anymore. We're not afraid of the infections for 3 reasons. Number 1 is we never saw this massive infection rate that we originally feared, because most of the people that become infected are asymptomatic. That is to say, they never develop the flu. The same as with AIDS. People get HIV, but they don't get AIDS. And the vast majority of the people that get HIV don't get AIDS unless they're engaging in the other forms of lifestyle that precipitate AIDS. We didn't see that with this virus. Everybody that got infected didn't get sick. In fact, only a small number of the people that got infected got sick. The body very quickly built antibodies to it, and when you build antibodies to this flu, you are now immune. There is 0.0, and I can put a whole bunch of zeros after that, 0.0000% of the people who caught this flu, beat the flu, who become reinfected. That never happened. The 260 cases that were originally reported were all false positives. Those people never got sick again. Those of us that have already had the flu, we already got it. We already fought our way through it, had the 3 or 4 week cough. It's over. It's done. we're immune. We're done. And at first, we thought it was a 2 or 3% of the society that had built up immunity. Now we know that is not the case. We think we're in the 35 to 45% range, and it really depends on what part of the country you're in. I think in New York, it's going to be a lot higher than that. In places like Italy, it's as high as 60% of their population is immune. Immune. That means they can't catch it again. Unless they come up with bioterror 2, we're not going to catch it again. We're now better for it, healthier for it, and we've moved on. Now, does that mean that the mainstream media, the fake stream news, they're going to let go of this? No, it doesn't. We see that we currently have about 24 states that are suffering from this virus. 24 states want to stay shut down. They're run by Democrats. All of the major cities where the outbreaks occurred were run by Democrats. All of the major death that occurred in this country, all in states run by Democrats. Do we know why? No. We don't have any idea why, but that's the way it turned out. Unless, maybe, possibly, could be, they didn't really have this any more deaths than any place else had. Every place had exactly the same number of deaths, a very low number, about 11 deaths per 100,000 people. But wait, the numbers are so much higher than that in New York and in Seattle and blah, blah, blah. Yes, they are. And what we have found in states like Pennsylvania and Ohio is that the COVID death numbers were vastly inflated, that they used probable deaths and all other forms of death, pneumonia, bronchitis, anemia, a stroke, heart attack, all those other forms of death went away and they all got counted as COVID virus. What we see is the numbers cannot be trusted, except that in the states where a lot of the statistics were taken, we're seeing a very consistent 11 deaths per 100,000. Got to tell you, folks, that those 11 people, all 11 people that died out of those 100,000, they had other problems. They had other problems, probably wouldn't live out the year anyway. They happened to get COVID, it stressed their system, and they died. Now, what is going to happen over the next 3 months is you're going to see a vast majority of these people go back to work. You're not going to see 120,000 jobs in the month of June or 250,000 jobs in the month of June. You're going to see about 2.5 million jobs in June. Double that in July. About 5 million people going back to work in the month of July. Maybe double that in August. About 10 million people going back to work in August. It is going to be the biggest hockey stick in employment that we have ever seen, ever in the history of this country. In fact, in the history of any country. Even after World War II, we didn't have a surge of employment like that, not even by ratios. So a paper by economists at the San Francisco Federal Reserve estimates that under an optimistic scenario that assumes shutdowns are lifted quickly, the unemployment rate should fall back to about 4%, which is about where it was, 3.5%, 4%, by early 2021. I think it's probably going to happen earlier than that because I think there's going to be great optimism with the election, great optimism with Christmas. It's going to be a little colder winter than we normally have, but it's going to be a great surge of optimism, and that is going to make things climb. The data suggests that many, many, many small businesses are holding on in hopes that spending and the economy will rebound soon, and it will. All my friends, we're all sitting on liquid cash. We don't have cash, we have silver, and we're waiting. I can tell you that as soon as my pedicurist puts out the open sign, I'm going in. And if I'm doing it, there are 10 million other Americans getting ready to do it too. So let's talk a little bit about this really weird weather. You know, I was going to go ride my motorcycle today and I was like, it's so sunny. I don't really want to put on a jacket today. I want to ride with my long sleeve shirt. I want to do a little two-wheel meditation. What's going on? It's mid-May. I don't understand. And you know what? I don't even live in the Northeast. Do you remember global warming? Yeah, it seems to me I do remember that. Oh my gosh. How many movies did we watch? How many crying liberals did we see on TV demanding money from the American taxpayer to go buy cooler temperatures, as if they could do such a thing? Now, do you remember when the trend began to turn the other way? I do, because I was right here. It was 2007. Suddenly, all of a sudden, global warming morphed into climate change. You remember that? It was like all of a sudden, wow, what happened to global warming? And now became climate change. I don't understand. All the posters had to be changed. All the songs had to be changed. All the signs in the lower thirds and the TV channels had to be changed to climate change. Hang on a second. I have a message. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I wasn't paying attention to my top chat. Oh, David, wonderful. $10 donation. Any studies on the difference between G-force and gravity effects on humans? One is a field, the other is the byproduct of an action. Not that I know of. Gravity is, by definition, an acceleration. We are falling, you and me, at the rate of 32 feet per second toward the center of the earth. I happen to have this excellent race car chair that's keeping me from falling, and it's sitting on this floor in our house, which is also keeping me from falling. And my house is sitting on the ground, which is also keeping me from falling. But nevertheless, I am still falling toward the center of the earth. I'm just being held in the chair by the force of that acceleration. Force is equal to mass times acceleration. My force is a little bit over 0.1 metric tons. Now, G-force, I don't really know what that means other than maybe the electromagnetic tether that's between stars or between galaxies or superclusters of galaxies. I don't know what difference that would have, that force and the force of gravity. I do know that when we are without it, well, the first thing we want to do is throw up. Believe me, everybody that goes weightless for a little while, and they don't call it the vomit comet for nothing. You don't have very good control over your inner ear when you're weightless. And that has a tendency to affect how you... This is my orange juice came from my producer. You don't have a control over your balance, and so that links to the nerves in our stomach, and you promptly lose your breakfast. Or in this case, it would be my orange juice. Fortunately, we're built to handle gravity, and it keeps our lunch down our neck. Obviously, astronauts that are weightless for a while, they get used to it. Well, okay, maybe they don't. They throw up less than 10 times a day, whereas you and I would throw up more than 10 times a day. That's the only effect I can think of is without gravitational force, our physiology doesn't work too well. You never quite get used to being weightless. You think you do, but it's all mind over matter because your body, your inner ear works on letting the liquid in your ear stay in the bottom part of your ear, and that's how you keep your balance. That's why when you close your eyes, you don't fall over because your inner ear keeps you balanced, keeps you level with the ground. Of course, they say that once you get older, you can't close your eyes for a long time because you'll fall over. But I have found that's really not true because I do that all the time. I'm kidding. But we can't do it on one foot. Not like when you're young. When you're young, you can close your eyes and stand on one foot, and you can last for minutes and minutes and minutes. As you get older, that amount of time shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. So that's the best analysis that I can come up with, David. And thank you so much for the question. So let's get back to talking about global warming. I'm sorry, climate change. We changed it, didn't we, in 2007? You see, what happened was the atmosphere thinned to the point that it could no longer insulate us from solar infrared radiation. While the days were long, the ground and the water heated up. While the days were short, the planet sent nearly twice as much energy as usual into space. The summers were breaking heat records. The winters were breaking cold records everywhere, even in places like Bangladesh and Los Angeles. Well, this week we're seeing something else. The lines between winter and summer have gotten more and more blurry. Why does that happen? It happens for a couple of reasons. One is because the atmosphere is thinning, and the other is that the magnetic force, the gravitational weather that comes from the sun to the earth, changes. It becomes unstable. Not because of the presence of sunspots, we certainly haven't had those, but because of the coronal holes. And the holes, even though they're not aimed at us, they still affect the heliosphere. And what we're seeing on the Earth, normally we see this nice, smooth undulation of the jet stream, and we get a normal weather. What we have seen in years very close to this is the snakiness of the jet stream has compressed. We see about twice as many nodes in the undulation of the jet stream as we normally see. We call this a polar vortex. What does this do? Well, it pulls cold Arctic air down across Canada, down into the Midwest, sometimes into the Northeast, and causes things like you saw yesterday, a snowstorm in the Northeast in mid-May. The issue is that this is a function of the sun, and that is what's causing this long-term drop in Earth temperature. It's also what caused the rise in Earth temperature. You see, California did not reach 70 degrees in February of last year. That's never happened before, ever. Now, it might seem almighty Zeus has decided our current life circumstances aren't historic enough, so he's throwing a little, May snowstorm into the mix. But forecasts are predicting parts of the Northeast and New England are going to reach record low temperatures this weekend and could see everything from a dusting to about 6 to 8 inches of snow. I'm sure the people around the ski resorts love it, but no one else does. So I guess we have to stay inside. Not like we're already, not inside, right? The states most likely to see snow, they're going to be, of course, New York, around Syracuse, Rochester, Binghamton, Albany, Pennsylvania, around Scranton, and Vermont, around Burlington. Otherwise, there's definitely going to be some rain, some 40-mile-an-hour winds. We had a lot of winds down here in North Carolina. It was a little cool. Not really even good for hammock, even in the sunshine. It was still, 59 degrees is just a tad uncomfortable for us down here. I know, you're up there in Vermont. You're perfectly comfortable with that. Well, we're not. Now, in addition to snow, 75 million people are going to wake up below freezing temperatures, and that was over the weekend. For many cities, it'll be colder than it was on Christmas Day. And this is all happening basically because a storm will mosey into Northeast Territory on Friday, and it's going to do a little jig with the Arctic air, and we call that the polar vortex. It's going to pull all this cool air down. It should be dry, it should be clear down here in North Carolina and South Carolina, but it's still going to be cool. So this is what's happening to our planet. I don't think that that we can call it global warming anymore. Yes, one of the key elements is mass. When it comes to gravity, that's true. If you look at the equation, F is equal to ma. Force is equal to mass times acceleration. Mass is the multiplier. Acceleration, pretty much constant. You jump off the roof, and you're going to hit the ground at the same time as a hammer. Yeah, its acceleration's pretty fixed. On the moon, it is exactly fixed because we don't have air resistance, so a hammer and a feather will drop at the same rate because the rate of acceleration on the moon is less than it is here on Earth because the gravitational pull it to the center of the moon is less. Now, I already talked about the COVID curve. Hydrogen life. This is cool. Did you know that life can thrive in a 100% hydrogen atmosphere? I didn't. I really didn't until I read this paper. Pretty interesting stuff. The finding could completely change our understanding of how and where life might exist in the universe. For the study, a team of researchers led by a woman named Sarah Seeger. She's an astrophysicist and a planetary scientist at the MIT, and she conducted experiments with the bacteria Escherichia coli. That is the bacteria that is present in poop. Escherichia coli is typically, we see it in cow manure, but it's the bacteria that exists in the gut. Now, it can be okay, except that E. coli has a tendency to become virulent. That is to say, it can make you sick and become gram-positive and make you sick. And the other thing is it can form endospores. That means the E. coli can land in the soil. The soil could be dry or hot or cold or whatever. So the bacteria protects itself by putting a hard casing over itself. And then when the conditions become more conducive to life, like it's springtime, the sun comes out, the snow melts, the grass begins growing, the E. coli becomes live again, and it can be virulent again. They put these species of E. coli into 100% hydrogen atmosphere. You would think, oh, they would, choke and die, because normally they are present in the gut. They're a, living organism that cows rely on to exist. They live off of it. Incredibly, these little beggars survived. They showed how life can live in such extreme atmospheres. Hydrogen makes up less than 1 part per million of Earth's atmosphere, which consists mostly of nitrogen. She said, I want to push astronomers to think more broadly about what kinds of planets might be habitable. If they ever thought of hydrogen-rich atmospheres, they would think it's fine for life to survive because hydrogen is not known to be toxic to life. However, she noted, astronomers are not aware that life can survive in hydrogen-dominated atmospheres, so our work was to give a clear and concise experimental evidence that it is so. I find that very fascinating. The microbes that Seeger and her team studied in the lab grew more slowly in 100% hydrogen atmosphere than they would in a normal oxygenated Earth atmosphere. A few times more slowly for E. coli and a few hundred times more slowly for yeast. However, she added that this is not too surprising because without oxygen, the microbes have to get all their food from fermentation, and that just doesn't yield much energy. They also need the redox reaction. They need the oxidation reduction action to get more energy more quickly. Now, while this experiment showed how life can survive in a pure hydrogen atmosphere, scientists don't expect to find like exoplanets with atmospheres made up of 100% hydrogen, like, say, Venus. Still, they do expect to find some exoplanets with hydrogen-dominated atmospheres that may have life on them. We don't know any planets like that yet. Theory says that they should exist. And hopefully they're not big enough like Jupiter where they could become a sun. But Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, giant exoplanets, they have hydrogen and helium-dominated atmospheres, though no one thinks that any life exists there. We don't know, but we're pretty sure it doesn't. Anyway, going forward, knowing that life can survive in hydrogen, researchers could expand their observations for off-exoplanets and their atmospheres. Maybe we'll find something like Pandora, where that atmosphere was poisonous to Jake and not poisonous to his avatar. You never know. You never know. I think anything is possible. I can tell you, wherever there is energy, wherever there is the ability to, in a molecular way, to form energy, there will be life. They may be extremophores, they may only be single-celled or a few organized cells, but there will be life. That's just the way DNA works. It finds a way. There's a lot of variability in the molecule that allows for proteins to fold and unfold in almost any condition. When we come back, will be the final segment of X Squared Radio tonight. Please subscribe. And if you are a subscriber, don't forget to click that little bell. Click the little bell. That's the notification. Next time we go live, you'll know about it. We're going to be live on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Every Wednesday and every Sunday at 8 p.m., we are live right here on YouTube, and you need to be aware of that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back in about 3 minutes with more America Free Radio. I am your host, Brooks Agnew. See you right after the break.
It's amazing how people have been raving about ILife all over Facebook. They've been posting their testimonials just because they want to get the word out because it's worked so well for them. If you're not familiar with ILife, it's a 99% pure CBD oil, but the secret is the synergy between the hemp and the ayahuasca vine, the non-psychoactive component of the ayahuasca tea. We recently received an email from a wife whose husband has Parkinson's. For the first time, he's been able to sleep through the entire night. Another customer reported that they're no longer using NSAIDs because their tennis elbow has been relieved with ILife. The reports have been phenomenal and much more than we ever expected. Everyone should have access to this. That's why if you head on over to ILife.com right now and use coupon code TFR, we'll give you $5 towards your order. And we'll even ship it worldwide. That's ILife.com, AYA life.com.
Hey folks, guess what the #1 phrase that Life Change Tea receives by email? You ready? We love this tea. We love this tea. Time after time, week after week, we love this tea. Life Change Tea gives you more energy, a beautiful cleansing, and fulfills its slogan perfectly. The tea that makes you go. So if you want to be on your health game, log on to getthetea.com and order Life Change Super Strength Tea. Packages come in a 1-month supply, and when you brew this stuff, wait until you see the results. Aren't we all about the results? And with a lot of people's health struggling, we can use a little bit of help. Doctors will tell you disease starts in the gut. So log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Be our next email saying, I love this tea. I love this tea. Get the tea at getthetea.com. Helping America one tea bag at a time.
Travis Cook, America's Evil Genius, here to invite you to join us every Tuesday afternoon here on Truth Frequency Radio. No, on our show, you will not see a bunch of three-piece suits or a cocktail party, and you certainly won't see a bunch of inside the Beltway banter. But you will see eye-gouging, crotch-kicking, no-holds-barred political discussion, the likes of which you won't see anywhere else in media. America's Evil Genius. We come to you every Tuesday from the outskirts of war-torn St. Louis, Missouri, where there's always a good race rider sex scandal just around the corner. Join us every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, and noon on the left coast right here on TFRLive.com. America's Evil Genius, Travis Cook, on TruthFrequencyRadio.com.
You are now tuned into the Truth Frequency.
Your protection from deception. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice all the days pass through, but in this final moment, I'm still chasing the truth.
Thanks for being with us here tonight on America Free Radio. This is the heart of free speech here. I call myself the voice of the revolution because that's exactly what's going on right now. We are experiencing a rebellion against the global syndicate by the people. By the way, the congresswoman from Somalia has been recognized. It should be no surprise that the congresswoman from Somalia, Ilhan Omar, is at it again. She's only been in Congress for one term, and already this woman has been caught in numerous scandals, including immigration fraud, marrying her brother and funneling money into her lover's consulting firm. Ilhan Omar asked for donations this week to help feed an organization called the Minnesota Food Store. She just loves getting with involved with public service when the cameras are rolling, don't you think? So she even tweeted her appearance to show how dedicated she was. The only problem was that not only was Adrian, the executive director of the GMCC, the Minnesota Food Store, unaware that Ms. Omar was involved. She had not been asked to help. In fact, Adrian didn't know Omar was raising money by using their cause as a backdrop. But they never saw a dime of the money, and they did not know where the money was going. Omar, by the way, deleted her self-aggrandizing tweet a short while later. No one has seen her or the money since the event. She is still at large and goes by many names. She's black, she's Muslim, and she's a Democrat. So she has reached the highest rungs of the social justice warrior grievance ladder of power. So please look away so she can commit more crimes without being harassed by pesky Republicans and conservatives with their pesky Christian values, laws, and their stupid Constitution. She is a liar. She is a cheater. She's a hustler. She's an adulteress. She's a leech and a tweet down. Perfect attributes for a Democrat. Will she ever be arrested or removed from Congress? Not until November. I'm afraid. Remember, single-term congressmen do not receive a pension. Couldn't happen to a nicer person. Speaking of interesting people, somebody I have amazing respect for, Elon Musk. He was on Joe Rogan's Experience lately, and I found what he said kind of interesting. Now, he was shag-nastied for it. People on Twitter and Facebook, used all kinds of profanity to describe Elon Musk. It's always easy to criticize self-made billionaires. But Elon Musk called the recent Wuhan coronavirus shelter-in-place orders unconstitutional, just days after reports appeared implying that Tesla Motors' Fremont plant in California may begin production again soon in violation of lockdown orders. In an appearance on episode number 1470 of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, Elon Musk discussed a number of topics, including this Wuhan coronavirus. He stated during the interview that some of the restrictions violate freedom of assembly and that Americans should be concerned about the massive infringement on civil liberties. No kidding. Musk stated that people fought and died for freedom and democracy, and we should treasure that and not give up our liberties too easily. I think we probably did that, he said. During the interview, Musk claimed that he knew people that had been infected by the Wuhan coronavirus, but none that had died, and advised that proper hygiene is a good thing no matter what, and that sick children should avoid the elderly regardless of their illness. He also said, my opinion is, if somebody wants to stay home, should stay home. And if somebody doesn't want to stay home, they should not be compelled to stay home. That's my opinion. And if people don't like that, well, that's my opinion. Close quote. Now, the report this week said that a source recently told the San Francisco Chronicle that Tesla Motors is preparing to restart car production at its factory in Fremont. That's violating the governor's shelter-in-place orders. Workers reportedly returned to the Fremont plant on Wednesday to prepare for a reopening of some production lines between now and next week, a source familiar with the factory operations told the San Francisco Chronicle. The source stated that a handful of employees returned to the factory floor to prepare, and that additional safety measures have to be put in place to guard against Wuhan coronavirus transmission. A spokesperson for the Fremont Police Department stated that there were no plans to visit the factory when informed by the Chronicle of reports that the partial return to work had occurred. We're all sort of in the little bit of gray area, according to Governor Gavin Newsom's announcement this week, that some retail, manufacturing, and logistics businesses would be allowed to operate on a limited basis if safety measures were put in place and local authorities approve. Now, we think that maybe some of these can be put in place. We're certainly doing it at our facility. We have about 1,200 employees at our facility. Some of them work a little close to one another, but most of them are about 6 feet apart, just normally by their workstations. I will be honest with you, not all the workers want to be there. I could just tell you the way factory workers are. If there's a chance that they could stay home and watch Netflix and make the same amount of money, that's what they want to do. And they will use virtually any excuse that it takes, including saying that they don't want to get sick to do that. I'm just saying that's what happens. However, out of 1,200 employees, we've had 3 reported cases of employees working at that facility. One of the people eventually expired. They died. I do not know what the treatment was. I don't know if they received hydroxychloroquine or whether they got CBD oil or whether they got zinc or vitamin C. I don't know. It's none of my business to know. I do know that this individual was not terrifically old. He'd been at the plant for 25 years. He was well-loved, healthy man, and he should have been able to beat it. He didn't. I don't know why. I do know the other 2 cases turned out to be nothing. They just got it, got sick, got well, came back to work, and that was that. I think that me and my friends, people that live close to me and work close to me, I think we already had it. We had something in December and January. It was an ass kicker. We coughed, dry coughed for a couple of weeks. Some of us got the Z-Pack and knocked it right out, and we were done with it. Others of us took massive doses of vitamin C. I think it took about 5 grams a day. No problem, licked it. We already heard Kaisi Berick, his mother, she's 60, caught it. She took CBD oil to take care of the inflammation, which prevented her lungs from going into reaction. She took, and also to keep the fever down, she took zinc to allow the antiviral properties to protect the cells, and she took vitamin C to boost her immune system. 5 days, she was done. She finished it. She's now immune. I'm immune. Most of the people in our city are immune. And that's what we call flattening the curve. We got it. We're over it. We will never see a day in a doctor's office because of this. 99.9% of the people, that's exactly what happens. And the percentage is much higher for people to recover. Only about 11 fatalities per 100,000. That's pretty benign. And that's with, I think, spotty healthcare. If the health industry would do what they have committed to do by their honor, by the Hippocratic Oath, they would be treating everyone with hydroxychloroquine and with zinc and with a Z-Pack or some kind of broad spectrum antibiotic, or maybe anti-inflammatories like corticosteroids. These are the way that you fight this disease. It's quick, it's over easily. Your immune system then creates antibodies against it, and you are immune forever. You're never going to get it again unless they come back with bioweapon 2. David, thank you very much. He said, you are a gracious and tolerant host. Brooks, thanks for putting up with my questions. I don't put up with your questions. I like your questions. I like all questions. I just really enjoy questions from people, and I appreciate them so much because it means to me that you're listening and I'm listening to you and we're having a conversation here, and it works for me. Checking the phone records one more time. No one there. All right. Obama's plot to overthrow the government. It's important that you pay attention here because this is going to unfold in the next few days, maybe even tomorrow. You know that we do a lot of time traveling here on this program. We go out to the future and we look back at things. I teach a class on how to do this. I'm pretty good at it. The final days of the Obama administration were the most corrupt and damaging to America in its history. January 5th, 2017, this is during transition. The election was over. The inauguration had not happened yet. I went to Trump Tower in January. I know what was going on. I could feel it. I could see it. It was just resonating all around. Obama held a meeting at the White House. And it was at this meeting that Obama gave guidance to his key officials. Although he publicly downplayed and laughed at the influence anyone could have over the American elections, because everyone thought Hillary would win, he assigned his gang to protect his administration's utilization of secretly funded Clinton campaign research. Now, you have to understand, this was a spy network. It was a spy network. And they did private disinformation program, and it was alleged that Trump was involved in a treasonous plot to collude with Russia. They knew it was ridiculous. They knew they were vulnerable, especially since Trump had chosen General Michael Flynn to be his national security advisor. They knew they would be discovered, and they knew they would be stopped or even prosecuted by the incoming administration. Quote, President Obama said he wanted to be sure that as we engaged with the incoming team, we are mindful to ascertain if there's any reason that we cannot share information fully as it relates to Russia. National Security Advisor Susan Rice wrote in an unusual email to herself about the meeting that was also attended by Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, FBI Director James Comey Chameleon, and Vice President Joe China Biden. After years of secrets, assassinations of diplomats who were involved, and a nearly full-time shredding operation, the clearer picture is emerging of the drastic steps that were taken to accomplish Obama's goal of overthrowing the American government. Within hours of this emergency meeting on January 5th, high-level operatives began intensely leaking selective information supporting a supposed Russia-Trump conspiracy theory. The incoming National Security Advisor was ambushed, and the incoming Attorney General was forced to recuse himself from oversight of investigations of President Trump. At each major point in the operation, explosive media leaks were a key strategy in the operation to take down Trump. Now, not only was information on Russia not fully shared with the incoming Trump team, as Obama directs, the leaks and the ambushes were made effective government. It made effective government almost impossible. They had to leave the building in order to have planning meetings because the leaks were so bad. In fact, during one of these movements, almost a year after the election, they had to go to Greenbrier. Greenbrier is a resort in Pennsylvania. It also, below it, has a bomb shelter with a 25-ton vault door. It's designed to withstand a nearby nuclear explosion. They moved the Republicans in Congress to this room in order to have a planning meeting because they knew they were going to be spied upon. They knew they were going to be tapped. So well publicized was this movement that an attempt was made to derail that train and kill all those Republican congressmen and their wives and their children. That's how ruthless and murderous this gang was. The probe ended with Mueller finding no evidence of any American colluding with Russia to steal the 2016 election, much less Trump or anyone connected to him. An analysis of the timeline from early 2017 shows a clear pattern of behavior from the federal officials running the collusion operation against the Trump campaign. They spied. They put people inside Trump's campaign. They put people inside Ted Cruz's campaign because they didn't know if he would win the nomination or not. May 26th in 2016, it was decided, but they nevertheless had spies inside his campaign. Now, on January 4th, which is the day before this key meeting, they began this politically motivated FBI investigation of Flynn, and they meant to kick this off in a big way. They wanted Flynn trapped so that they would fire him or arrest him. On the 5th, the next day, this is the key meeting I'm talking about, Sally Yates, Comey Chameleon, the CIA Director John Brennan, and Director of National Intelligence James Crapper briefed Obama on Russian-related matters in the Oval Office. There's a record of that meeting. That record, that transcript, has yet to be made public. Biden and Rice were also in the room. We're talking about Susan Rice, the National Security Advisor, and Joe Biden, the notorious criminal from Ukraine and China. After the Obama briefing, the intelligence chiefs, who would be leaving at the end of the term, were dismissed, and Yates and Comey, who would continue in the Trump administration, they were asked to stay. Now, not only did Barack Obama personally give his guidance about how to perpetrate the Russia collusion theory investigations, he also talked about Flynn's conversations with Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak. Now, this is a very big problem because the conversations with Kislyak were totally benign. It happened at a lunch in public at a table. The conversations was like something like, "This is good caviar, don't you think?" I mean, yeah, I don't really care for caviar, but if you say it's good, I'm sure it's good. That was the extent of the conversation. They killed him. They killed Kislyak. Why? Because he could say, "Look, all we talked about was the caviar. There was no other question about nothing we were talking about. You know what I'm talking. I've been here 25 years. Why would I do that?" So they killed him. Kislyak was dead. After 20 years in Washington, an icon in Washington. Yes, he was a Russian. Yes, he probably was an ultra politician. But he was smooth and everybody knew him and they knew where he was coming from and he couldn't be rattled by very much. These old guys were like that. They killed him. Clapper testified he did not brief Obama on the calls. Yates learned about the calls from Obama himself during that meeting. And Comey Chameleon also testified he didn't brief Obama about the calls, even though the intelligence was an FBI product. Susan Rice, who publicly lied, but of course later admitted under oath to her widespread use of unmasked intelligence at the end of the Obama administration, although she said, "I didn't do it for political reasons, so it's got to be okay, right?" Gosh, so Rick Moranis. It was just unbelievable. Anyway, she likely briefed Obama on the calls and would have had access to the intelligence. Comey Chameleon mentions the Logan Act at this meeting. The Logan Act basically is a 18th century law which forbids members of the cabinet or former members of the cabinet or former members of any administration, even Congress actually, supposedly, from going to a foreign country and speaking to a foreign power counter to the policies of the current administration. It was designed to keep people from going back and talking to the crown and making a deal. Because at that time, King George wanted to make a deal. King George wanted to take apart the new colony, the new country, and he knew the way to do it was to bribe some colonists. Remember, the signers of the Constitution, each and every one of them was destroyed. They were killed. They were driven into bankruptcy. They were hunted to the ends of the earth by King George. All the signers of the Constitution died penniless and without a name. No, Benjamin Franklin did not sign the Constitution. So there you go. He wasn't destroyed. Anyway, it was this meeting that Susan Rice memorialized in a bizarre Inauguration Day email, not to anyone else, but to herself. She emailed it to herself. We call that a cover your ass email. And she claimed Obama told the gathered to do everything by the book. By the book. Well, you can't be busted for doing everything by the book now, can you? But it wasn't done by the book. It was covered up by the book. It was a dirty stain on the floor, and they dropped the book on top of it and covered the stain. That's what they did with the book. But Susan Rice also noted in her email that the key point of discussion in that meeting was whether and how to withhold national security information, likely including details of the investigation into Trump himself. Why? Because they were using the 17 intelligence agencies that make up the intelligence community, that are all run by the Director of National Intelligence, coordinated by him. They were using it to spy on Trump. They were using it to spy on a presidential candidate. Worse, they were using it to spy on a sitting president. Yes, they were. And they needed to cover it up. They needed to withhold information. They knew that if they could withhold it long enough, that their buddies in the global media empire would come in and smooth the whole thing over, turn it into one big tennis shoe conspiracy theory, and nobody would pay any attention to it. That's what they thought. And the 6th and the 10th and the 12th and the 23rd and the 24th of January, these meetings continued in secret. You know, on the 24th, Comey Chameleon later admitted that he broke every protocol to send agents to interview Flynn and try to catch him in a lie. Do you know that they didn't put him under oath? Do you know they didn't even sit down to talk with him? They talked with him while they walked in the hallway. And Flynn said, hey, do I need a lawyer? No, you don't need no lawyer. We're just talking. We're just friends here. After all, General Flynn was coming in as the new national security advisor. The FBI was going to be on his team. They were his guys. They were the good guys. And they were sent in by Comey Chameleon to trap him. Well, all of this has come out. Flynn has now been, all the charges have been dropped with prejudice. And by the way, with prejudice means it can never, ever come back again in any form. He's done. Now, what do you think Flynn should do? Do you think Flynn should say, whew, man, I dodged that bullet. Maybe, I can live the rest of my life, with my grandkids and my pension, and I can survive here? Or do you think Flynn should sue them? Do you think Flynn should go right back into court and testify against them? Well, I'm kind of with the latter. Because the one thing America has lost faith in is the rule of law. We don't believe in it anymore. We see what's happening around us. We're watching who's walking away from it. We see Susan Rice and Valerie Jarrett and James Comey and John Brennan and Clapper and all these other guys walking scot-free while Flynn loses his house and all of his family fortune, his kids running scared. We see all of that, and we've lost faith in the rule of law. Don't lose faith in the human race. We'll see you on Wednesday at 8 o'clock right here on America Free Radio. My name is Brooks Agnew. Thank you so much for being with us.